right, good morning. We will call this meeting to order. Thank you everyone for being here. Madam Clerk.
Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
We'd ask members if you are willing and able to stand for the invocation delivered by Pastor Jeff Gagnon of Chapel Hill United Methodist Church, and then continue standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor, the floor is yours. Pastor Gagnon, if you could hear us, we are ready for the prayer. Can he hear us? Is there any technical? He stepped away. All right, we'll move into the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting and en banc meeting on September 28th, 2021.
Has everybody had a chance, or every member had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, is there any discussion of the minutes? If there is no discussion of the minutes, then I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Proclamations. Indigenous Peoples Day.
If you're here for the Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation, please make your way to the front. All right, proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations, sponsored by the International Conference on Discrimination Against Indigenous Populations in America. And whereas historically, the city has embraced our local Indigenous peoples' culture, particularly the work of Black Bear Bison, whose Keeper of the Plains is not only part of our city's skyline, but a prominent symbol of our city. And whereas the city values the many contributions made to our community through Indigenous peoples' knowledge, labor, technology, science, philosophy, arts, and the deep cultural contribution that has substantially shaped the character and landscape of the city of Wichita. And whereas the City of Wichita encourages businesses, organizations, and public entities to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, which shall be used to reflect upon the ongoing struggles of Indigenous people on this land and to celebrate the thriving culture and value that our Indigenous nations add to our city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim October 11th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Wichita and encourage citizens to celebrate the thriving cultures and values of the indigenous peoples of our city and strongly encourage them to join communities across America in recognition and promoting the well-being and understanding of the contributions of our indigenous communities.
My name is Newman Washington. I'm a traditional health coordinator with Hunter Health and also a representative for the Native American Community Resource Coalition. And today we'd like to thank the City of Wichita Mayor and the council members for the acknowledgement of the Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation that was approved. The proclamation addresses not only the culture and the diversity, but also the indigenous populations within our surrounding communities. This is not only a local level, it's a national level. And what we're doing is having those steps for building blocks for generations, because from our past, it's always the lessons that we learned. But for our future generations, it's good lessons and memories that we can share. And once again, I just want to say thank you.
Madam Clerk,
National 4-H Week.
for those who are here to participate in a proclamation for National 4-H Week, please make your way to the front. Welcome. Proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas 4-H is America's largest youth development organization, having supported almost 6 million youth across the country thus far. And whereas 4-H has helped thousands of youth in Wichita and Sedgwick County, Kansas, to become confident, independent, resilient, and compassionate leaders. And whereas 4-H is delivered by cooperative extensions, a community of more than 100 public universities across the nation that provide experiences where young people from all walks of life can learn by doing hands-on projects in wide-ranging areas, including health, science, the arts, architecture, and citizenship. And whereas 4-H's network of 600,000 volunteers and 3,500 professionals provide caring and supportive mentoring to all 4-Hers, helping them grow into true leaders, entrepreneurs, and visionaries. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim October 4th through the 10th, 2021 as National 4-H Week in the City of Wichita, and encourage all of our citizens to recognize 4-H for the significant impact it has made on and continues to make by empowering youth with the skills they need to lead for a lifetime.
Mayor Whipple and City Council members, my name is Amy Crow, and it is my honor as the president of the Achievers 4-H Club here in Wichita and the Sedgwick County Fiber Arts Project Leader to represent all 4-H members across Wichita. We would like to thank you for recognizing 4-H and the impact it has on the youth in our city. I've experienced firsthand the leadership and citizenship opportunities 4-H provides and how it connects young people in positive situations impacting our futures. You may think 4-H to be a rural organization with cows, goats, and pigs, but here in the city, we have many clubs who teach kids how to cook, sew, take photos, plant, study rocks, do STEM, and much more. 4-H takes shy introverts like myself and in 4 years puts them in front of the mayor and city council. We thank you, Mayor Whipple and city council members, for working to make Wichita better and solving problems along the way. For 4-H, solving a problem may look like getting your cookie not to crumble, having your dog actually sit and stay, or stopping your rocket from landing on the neighbor's roof. But in the process, we are preparing for bigger, larger problems to solve in the future. If you haven't been to the Sedgwick County Fair in Cheney, we would encourage you to come out in July and see what Wichita's 4-H'ers have accomplished. Thank you again for recognizing 4-H this week.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Hispanic Heritage Month.
If you're here for the proclamation to recognize National Hispanic Heritage Month, please make your way to the front. And also, if you're taking pictures, feel free. This is all yours here, so feel free to use it as you can. We don't want anything getting away with a good picture. Proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas National Hispanic Heritage Month provides an opportunity to celebrate the rich culture and ethnic traditions of Hispanic and Latino American communities. And whereas Hispanics make up the largest ethnic minority group in the United States and continue to be the fastest growing minority group in our state. And whereas Hispanic heritage contributes to our diversity, thus enriching life in culture, cuisine, arts, business, community, civic leadership, and education. Whereas we celebrate the practice of commitment of family, love of country, respect for others, and other virtues that reflect the true American spirit and are nobly exemplified by the Hispanic American community. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in the City of Wichita and encourage all citizens to recognize the contributions made and to celebrate their heritage and culture.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cecilia Tebow, and alongside with me today, I have Danny Barrera. We are two of the founding members and leaders of Young Latino Professionals of Wichita. Thank you for having us here today. We're excited to have this opportunity to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. This month gives us the opportunity to celebrate the achievements and contributions of Hispanic champions who have inspired others to achieve success. Hispanics are a diverse group ranging from origins in Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And a common theme several share is the pride they have in culture, family, and food. Hispanics have been growing faster than any other group, and that trend is expected to accelerate. Statistics show that the Wichita area is projected to increase in overall population by 12.8% in the next 15 years. The Black population is projected to increase by 12%, or 12.8%, 21%. Other races will increase by 26.5%. And lastly, the Hispanic population is projected to increase by 116% by the year 2036.
With these increases we are seeing both nationally and locally, we are proud that Wichita offers various ways for Latinos to lead, learn, and engage throughout our community. We can see this translate directly to this room by seeing those who are here today to celebrate this proclamation. Of those here today, we have groups and organizations such as Empower Evergreen, Salud Más Bienestar, Hispanics in Real Estate, and the Kansas Hispanic Education Development Foundation, among many others, that work with individuals and groups to continually raise and celebrate Hispanic voices in our community. Thank you, City Council, for this opportunity to celebrate Hispanic culture and achievements in our community. And thank you to those of you who came to share in this celebration. Gracias.
Madam Clerk.
Public agenda, Mike Geiger, loud car stereos.
Hello, my name is Mike Geiger, and I'm here to ask you a question. When is something going to be done about these car stereos? I cannot get any peace and quiet in my house. I have to turn the TV up to drown this stuff out. I've called the police out there I don't know how many times. Nothing ever gets done about it. The police keep telling me they'll come out and get a hold of me so I can sign a complaint. Well, that never happens. It's to the point I'm about ready to take a shotgun and start blowing these things out of the dashboards of their cars. That's how mad I am about it. Well, any suggestions?
I would suggest not using a shotgun.
Well,
As a
what
resolution.
can I do? I'm tired of it. This crap is driving me crazy. Would you like to hear this all day long? Boom, 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 boom. All day long sometimes. Even up till 1 o'clock in the morning. And there's this one guy. You can hear him 3 or 4 blocks away coming. Now, I pay my property taxes. I'm entitled to have peace and quiet in my own house, aren't I? Well, what can be done about it? Outlaw those subwoofers. That would be a real good start.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, what I'll do is I'll have the police chief or one of his staff members meet up with Mr. Geiger to go through his concerns in more detail and talk about alternatives. All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 25.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item 12 for discussion.
Item 12. Item 12 will be pulled. Is there further discussion on the consent agenda? There is no further discussion. That I will make a motion to accept the consent agenda and pass it with the exception of item 12.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass. We are back on item 12. The chair recognizes Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not my district, but I thought it was appropriate considering we had Hispanic Heritage Month on the proclamation today. This is a grant that is being provided to Evergreen Neighborhood Resource Center from Empower Evergreen to make that facility even better. And I don't have all of the details on what it is, but I know Councilmember Claycomb has done a lot of work on this, and maybe she could speak to it just to, again, highlight what Empower Evergreen is doing for the Evergreen Neighborhood Resource Center.
Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember Fry, for that recognition. This is a donation from Empower to help with some of the construction of the site, and recognizing that we needed some additional movable walls and HVAC, and so they have jumped in and decided to help with that because they will be a tenant in the new community center. Again, for those of you that may not know about this project, we are working on workforce development, small business development, and education in that site. And so this is just one of our great partners that is helping us do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I wish they were still here so we could give them a thank you, but
I know.
thank you. So with that, I'd make a motion, we approve the
Second.
Motion is
donor
made by
agreement.
Councilmember Fry and seconded by Councilmember Claycomb. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 78 votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Board of Bids and Contracts dated October 4th, 2021.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Hannah Lang, Department of Finance, here for the October 4th Board of Bids recommendations. First engineering bid we have is KDOT Pawnee Webb to Greenwich, defer to October 11th Board of Bids. Sanitary sewer extension to serve Cedar Creek Addition Phase 2, Apex Excavating for $154,271.44. Waterline and 53rd Street North, defer to October 11th Board of Bids. Refurbish herbicide spray equipment on vehicle, Fairbank Equipment Incorporated for $50,282.30. Automated captioning engine, Link Electronics for $64,609.42. This is the purchasing procurement website, as well as our current open request for proposals. With that, that's the Board of Bids recommendations. I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? If there's no questions for staff, is there any input from the public? If there's no input from the public, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? If there is no discussion on the item, then I will make a motion to accept staff's recommended action. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing and a request for a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds, ICT 21 LLC.
Good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development. For the record, the item before you today is a request for a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for ICT 21 LLC. In December of 2017, the City Council approved a speculative industrial program for building speculative industrial buildings. To qualify, a developer would have to build a minimum of 100,000 square feet, which would not be divisible below 25,000 square feet. The building would need to have a minimum clear height of 28 feet, and tilt-up concrete is preferred. The developer would be required to start construction within 120 days of City Council approval, and complete the project within 15 months of city council approval. The developer would have to use industrial revenue bonds to achieve the property tax abatement, which would be 95% abatement for the first 5 years and 50% abatement for the second 5 years if the building is at least 50% leased. There is no abatement on the land. Currently, 5 projects have been approved under this policy. The first is Wham Capital, Michaela's family, which built a 100,000 square foot building at 35th Street North and Webb Road, which is fully leased. Jeff Lang, through Iron Horse, built 100,000 square feet at Seneca and MacArthur, which is fully leased. Steve Barrett and Ivan Crossland built 140,000 square feet at 40th Street North and Tobin, which is near 40th and Webb Road, which is leased to Amazon. They have built a second building at 40th and Tobin, which is 113,000 square feet, which is close to being fully leased. And finally, Millennia Productions is in the process of building a building, 128,000 square foot building, and has very good leasing activity on it. ICT 21 LLC is made up of members Ron Cornejo, Marty Cornejo, Matthew Polzin, and Morgan Kuhn, and they intend to build a 180,000 square foot warehouse for a total investment in excess of $12,600,000. The building will be built at 21st Street North and I-135. They are currently requesting a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $12,605,000. This was contemplated as part of a memorandum of understanding that was approved by the City Council on September 21st of this year for a larger development in this location. The area outlined in here in red shows where the property will be located. You can see 21st Street running along the bottom of this aerial, and I-135 is a little bit to the right of the center of this aerial. This is a site plan for the project. You can see there's a red arrow that is pointing to a warehouse building. That is where the first of potentially several speculative industrial buildings could be built. This is an architectural rendering of what the facility would look like. The estimated value of 1 year of a 95% property tax abatement is approximately $304,000 for all taxing jurisdictions and approximately $78,000 for the city. A cost-benefit analysis was conducted by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University, which showed an overall return to the city of 1.38 to 1 and 1.32 to 1 for the city's general fund and 1.54 to 1 for the city's debt service fund. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures. Marty Cornejo is here and can speak specifically to the project, and I would be happy to stand for any questions as well.
Are there questions for staff? See none. Is there input from the public? See none. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? If there's no discussion on the item, I'll make the motion. Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to mention that this speculative building program has provided spaces needed for industrial uses that we haven't had in the past and are now make these available. You know, we've lost opportunities because of that. So I just want to thank ICT 21 for providing industrial spaces in your new development. So thank you.
Councilmember, my apologies. This does reside in District 6. That escaped me when I was looking at the agenda. So if you would like to retain the floor for a motion, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I move that City Council close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Claycomb and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Extension of IRB exemption BEH 8219 Irving LLC, Max Aerostructures.
Again, Mayor and City Council members, Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development for the record. The next item before you is the approval of a second 5-year property tax abatement for BEH 8219 LLC, or Max Aerostructures, here in Wichita. On November 8th, 2016, the City Council approved the issuance of industrial revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $6 million for BEH 8219 LLC, which is doing business here in Wichita as Max Aerostructures. BEH 8219 is a real estate holding entity that is leasing the facility to Max Aerostructures. The bond proceeds were used to acquire and equip the facility at 8219 West Irving, which is a 200,000 square foot facilities. Max Aerostructures was formed in 2016 by former owners of Exacta Aerospace. They manufacture and assemble metallic components and airframe structures for commercial, business jet, and defense sectors of the aviation markets. The area outlined in red is where the facility at 8219 West Irving is located. You can see Kellogg coming in across the top of this aerial and Tyler Road coming in top to bottom on the left side of this aerial. So you can see immediately south of the Max Aerostructures facility is where Bombardier Learjet is located, and obviously south of that is Eisenhower Airport. These are a couple of photos of the facility, as are these. At the time the project was approved for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds in 2016, the company was projecting they would invest $12 million in capital to acquire and renovate the facility, as well as equip it with new machinery and equipment. To date, they've invested in excess of $40 million in this facility. They were also projecting at the time they would create 60 new jobs. To date, they are at 72 new jobs and actually peaked at 119. And the annual wages were projected to be $42,500 a year. They are in excess of $53,000 a year. So they have well exceeded all of the projections that they had at the time this was originally approved by the City Council. An updated cost-benefit analysis was conducted by the Center for Economic Development and Business Research at Wichita State University, which showed an overall return of 1.66 to 1 for the city, 1.47 to 1 for the city's general fund, and 2.06 to 1 for the city's debt service fund. Therefore, it is the staff recommendation that the City Council extend the tax exemption on the IRB financed property for BEH 8219 LLC, or Max Aerostructures, for a second 5-year term. Seth Albin, who is with the company, is here and can answer any questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Is there any questions of staff? Seeing none, is there any input from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on this item? If there's no further discussion, the chair recognizes Councilmember Bluebog as this item resides in District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take the recommended action to extend the tax exemption on the IRB finance property for BEH 8219 LLC Max Aerostructures for a second 5-year term.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Funding for Greater Wichita Partnerships, the Future of Work and Workforce Study.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Scott Rigby, City Manager's Office and the Office of Economic Development. Today, we're here to talk about a critical study that we believe is important to be part of. As you may know already, the city partners with the Greater Wichita Partnership, which has responsibility for not just the city, but for the region to promote economic development activities. One of the GWP's, or Greater Wichita Partnership's, duties is the implementation of recently approved regional growth plan. I think many of you were involved with that identifies the need of recruiting, developing, and retaining a talented workforce to meet the needs of not just today, but tomorrow's Wichita employees. As we know, due to the pandemic, workforce is becoming even more critical, and the fight for workforce is becoming greater. Just for consideration, a recent Brookings report indicated that 47 or nearly 48% of all tasks within all occupations within the Wichita region could be automated which means the need is to prepare our current and future workforce to be ready for future opportunities within their existing professions or additional other opportunities. For the benefit of its workforce, Wichita needs to become proactive in preparing, recruiting, and retaining skilled talent to adapt to this changing economy. In this effort, as we have charged GWP over the last few years, is to become more proactive in development and retention of talent. And at this time, GWP, or Greater Wichita Partnership, is recommending the development of a comprehensive strategy to focus on workforce development. With that, I'm going to ask Jeff Floor with the Greater Wichita Partnership, who's the Executive Director and President, to come down and present a brief overview of the proposed study, and then I'll return for funding recommendations.
Welcome.
Good morning. Scott, thank you. Jeff Floor, Greater Wichita Partnership, President and CEO, as well as with Downtown Wichita. We appreciate the opportunity to be before you all today to talk about what we believe is a really important next step for our community. We appreciate Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council members, and Mr. Manager the opportunity to lay forth some of the strategies and things that we've been seeing as we continue to work on workforce development and talent. At the core of this work is twofold. One is what Scott just mentioned, is that how is it that those who are employed today, how do we help them be prepared for the evolution of their jobs? We know it's happening. So how is it that we proactively understand what that training needs to be to help that individual to be relevant in their position in the days, months, and years to come? Secondly, we really do believe this is an opportunity to differentiate not only this region, but our state. We all talk about breakout moments where we talked about with Austin and Nashville, where they really seized the moment to say, how is it we break out into the economy to where we're a leader? We believe this work will help position us to be able to do that with workforce development. I will tell you with economic development projects, it doesn't take but 2 seconds to get into a conversation about talent. Do you have the pipeline of talent to hit the labor needs I'm going to have in my expansion? Or if we're looking at attraction, they also ask the same questions. And so again, we feel it's very relevant to be able to have this conversation with you today and also be moving forward with a strategy that will help us position as we go forward. There are a number of things that are happening. We've all experienced the last 18 months, the advances of technology. We've seen that in artificial intelligence, digital transformation, automation. These things were already creating a disruption in the economy. The pandemic has just accelerated. I think we would all agree to that point, including remote work and introducing it in a way that we never fathomed would be. There have been big changes underway and coming from individual businesses in which we know jobs will continue to evolve, and we know the new jobs will be created. It's estimated over 97 million new jobs will be created as we go forward in our economy. As we think about the employee's point of view, we know that 8 out of 10 workers say that they do not feel ready for the future as far as understanding how is it they need to advance their skills and abilities. We know that will continue, and we also know that there's new jobs that have been emerging. If you just think about what's happening with commercial drone operators, artificial intelligence engineers, 3D printing technicians, big data analysts, these are all new jobs that are in our economy. There will also be the new ones that are coming forward as well. You know, how many of us didn't consider remote work or even utilizing Zoom and Team 2 years ago, but yet it's very much a stream of what we do with business every day. Scott mentioned this statistics already, which I think is one that should catch our attention. This is from Brookings, and it states that 47.5% of the jobs that we have today in our region in some form or fashion are susceptible to automation in some capacity. So how is it that we train our workforce to make sure they step into that correctly? How do I make sure I step into that correctly as we go forward? I think it's a question for all of us as we work. There's also this moment of inflection, I think, for regions across the country and states. Other counties and regions and states are thinking about this, but we're mobilizing. So again, this is a moment where we feel very important for us to be able to break out as we go forward. I'm going to quickly go through a number of other additional slides that hit like the process and some of the deliverables. So one of the things that we know is that as we talk about this process, we know the magnitude of these changes. We need to partner with a subject matter expert really that has a global expertise to be able to help us through this moment. And we know that Deloitte has this capability. They are pioneers in human capital and talent industry research. They have the expertise to assist our community in gathering cutting-edge trends and data and tools. They have vast proprietary research. They have access to top thought leaders across the globe, and they are dedicated to putting people at the center and are committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity as an integral part of the success as we look to the future. Deloitte has worked with every industry sector on their talent and person needs, and they also have an invested interest in Wichita with the Smart Factory at Wichita at WSU's Innovation Campus. I know a number of you have been able to see that firsthand, and it's remarkable the asset that our community is going to have. They are also excited to work with our community, our region, and our state to do this work. The process is a 12-week process. We also understand that this also reflects the urgency of this moment, that we need to really dive into this so that we understand the analysis, build on existing assets such as the Regional Growth Plan and Talent Blueprint. Scott mentioned the Regional Growth Plan is a project a strategy that we worked with you to develop back in 2018. That strategy is delivering incredible results. We're seeing thousands of jobs created. We are actually in a moment now where we are attracting companies into our city, one being Nova Coast, a cybersecurity company. We brought that company in from the West Coast. We also seeing migration from the East Coast. Again, that strategy helps us be able to drive very important conversations as we go forward. We see this strategy doing the exact same thing as an integration, if you will, with the Regional Growth Plan. This will also be a moment of careful listening to business educators, leaders, and combining that deep listening with the proprietary data and provide analysis of those opportunities. As I think about education, one of the speakers that are going to accompany us today is Dr. Sherry Utash, President of WSU Tech and Vice President of Workforce Development at WSU. She'll be able to speak into how this will be relating into education and also training. Keith Long, who is the president at Workforce Alliance in South Central Kansas, will also speak to you about the importance of what we're talking about and how that's integrated into what they're doing with Workforce Alliance. And then thirdly, you'll hear from an industry leader, Scott Swindeman, again, who will tie this together. So all those are critical voices, we believe, to tie into why we selected Deloitte, but also how they will contribute to the process as we go forward. On deliverables, some of the things I wanted to note to you is that these are the deliverables that we expect to see from Deloitte. We are a firm believer that when you engage an expert of this nature, you push them for everything that you can get. If you go back to Project Downtown, that project that was done back in 2009, you partnered with us in the community to do Project Downtown, the master plan for our city center. That plan to date has yielded in over $1 billion of investment. $750 million of that is in private investment. That's exactly what we set out to do back in 2009. At that moment, we were seeing sometimes years of 1-to-1 investment. Now we're seeing years, it has been up to 1-to-33, 1-to-35. Incredible advancements. Again, that's what strategy can do for us when we identify it and then we really push to accelerate it. So again, we expect that out of Deloitte, that we're going to be really pushing for clear collaborative regional strategies that will help us change the workforce and develop it as we go forward. It's going to be a timeline for regional initiatives. So again, understanding what we want to prioritize, but also push to have done in a sequence. We'll have a data analysis summary report, interview findings reports, design lab summaries. All these things will help us guide forward. And these are the things that we're going to be leaning into Deloitte to deliver for us as we go forward. In this next section, we're going to have, again, Keith Loing join me, President and CEO of Workforce Alliance of South Central Kansas, to talk about some of the community outcomes that we will see and expect out of this work. So, Keith, I believe you're here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, council members. Pleasure to be here today. Keith Loing, Workforce Alliance of South Central Kansas. I'm very excited to talk to you about this process that we are about ready to engage into. And one of the reasons the Workforce Alliance is supporting this project is the realization of the significant change technology is creating in the primary employment sectors that drive this regional economy: manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, and information technology. And in fact, the bottom line is that pretty much every company is now a tech company. And it affects how we hire and how we train workers. Now, one of the questions that we often get at the Wichita Workforce Center is what skills training program will help me get a good job? Or how can I get the skills to help set me up for a great career? The results and the outcomes of the project that we're talking to you about today, the Future Work Project, will help us answer these questions and provide the right kind of support to connect job seekers to opportunities that will lead to high-quality careers. And again, I think just to echo some of the things that you heard from Jeff, one of the most important outcomes from this project with Deloitte will be able to provide a clear focus amongst business, the public sector, and education on coordinated strategies, rather than kind of heading off into different piecemeal directions with all good intentions, but somehow not coordinated or connected to have the best outcomes possible. If you look at the slide, am I advancing slides here? Okay, on this slide in particular, one of the things we're looking to do is really have that alignment across our K-12, post-secondary education, public sector around these emerging industries. When we are able to connect like these, we've had examples of the past. And one we're into right now is an expansion of work-based learning opportunities for high school kids. So this is going to be the kind of data needed to put those high school students in the right kind of programs to be looking forward to these jobs. We've got the affiliation with WSU and WSU Tech, which again is a response to what is happening in the market and an adaptation of public policy to help address that. We've got the Shocker Pathway that emerged out of that. We also have the Aviation Career Pathway. And so again, what we will get from Deloitte as one of the outcomes is a real focused series of steps that we can take and develop a strategy around those. And even more immediately for the Workforce Alliance, the outcomes of this project will have for us, it will provide some guidance on how best to deploy the 4-year, $9.9 million One Workforce grant that we received earlier this year. That grant is really designed to focus on the intersection of manufacturing and technology, and a lot of the language in that application that was approved by Department of Labor recognize the Smart Factory project at Wichita State's Innovation Campus that Deloitte is leading. Second, we're also looking to position this community to receive more federal dollars. And EDA's put a grant out there, Good Jobs Challenge, is going to be due in January. And again, the information that we glean from this report will help us put a very competitive application together and look at where we can fill in those gaps. What areas that $9.9 million I mentioned, what are we not going to be able to fund with that? Where could that Good Jobs Challenge come and fill some of those gaps? Again, the data will really help us drive that. And another outcome that I feel really good about, and in terms of our region, is this will impact how the Workforce Alliance works directly with the Greater Wichita Partnership. I've been doing this job for a little over 15 years, and when I first started, we very rarely were in the room when we had a prospect visiting Wichita to look to maybe locate a business here or talking to an employer who wanted to expand. Now, we are always in the room, because workforce is a critical component of decisions being made by companies, whether or not they will locate or how they will expand. And again, the kind of data that we have will really be able to sharpen those conversations with those employers looking to expand or looking to relocate here, how they can source the talent, what kind of talent they're looking for, and how we will develop them and through those training programs. To me, I guess one of the most impactful outcomes of this, and what I'm most excited about, is, it's the impact it's going to have on our workforce. We have a world-class workforce in South Central Kansas. We brag about that. We help attract businesses to it. And this is going to help us make the right investments with the people in this community who we work with every day. And in my opinion, the time is right for us as a community to step up and boldly address the tsunami of change that we are seeing right now to ensure our friends, our family, and our neighbors will be the ones to get these new jobs that technology is now creating. They deserve it, and investing in a world-class workforce is a difference maker in a very competitive global economy. I'm going to transition now, and I want to bring up my good friend Dr. Sherry Utash, president of WSU Tech, and she's one of these education leaders who can see firsthand the powerful outcomes when education and skills training matches up to job growth and job creation opportunities. Again, I thank you for your time, and after we're done speaking, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Doctor. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Keith, and good morning, Mayor and members of the City Council. A pleasure to be here this morning to talk with you about something this exciting. Like Keith, all of us in education, K through 16, we all work with business and industry. And it's even more important as we look to the future. Yesterday, right across the street, there's a workforce innovation conference going on for K through 16. And at that conference yesterday, the Kansas Board of Regents, the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, and the Kansas Department of Education, the leaders of each of those three, talked about the importance of the integration of education and business and industry, and how do we look to the future. So the timing is right. I think we should know, I think you know that we work with them, we try to create a current workforce and potential workforce for the future. We're all working together to try to make sure that we are educating and developing career pathways for people in our community to be successful and to be globally competitive in the workplace. And we've worked really close together, and we've done some really good work. And I think we need to celebrate that. But we have a real challenge in front of us, and probably not too much different than the challenges that people in your positions, leaders, and also community leaders and community people faced in the 1920s after the 1918 pandemic. We had the Industrial Revolution. And the things that happened with technology have affected our parents, our grandparents, and our lives. And I kind of think we're on the cusp of the next thing of that. So when we think about it, we know that this change and this disruption that's occurred and going to occur with technology, we know that that is happening. We also know that it's important to bring subject matter experts to the table that really understand this type of work. They know the right kind of questions to ask. They know how to probe for those solutions. They know how to bring different solutions to the table for discussion. That's why it's important that Deloitte's part of this. So we need to know what are the types of jobs that will be changing and will be created in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and beyond that. I think all of us know the piece that came out not too long ago that says that a third of the jobs by 2030 that will be in this community, we don't even know the names of those jobs. We don't know what they're called. We don't know what they will entail. We don't know what the education will be. So the educational perspective of this initiative, a key outcome is to provide us guidance, and to provide us guidance K through 16 of how do we need to prepare the workforce of the future. And we build educational programs, and we do it really well, but it does take some time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it also takes dollars to do that. And we're ready to invest in that, but we want to invest in it doing it the smart way with strategies that come from research and data, which we believe will come from this initiative. So providing this for people in our community, we believe can change lives sooner, and that we can create greater economic prosperity for everyone. We also know that individual businesses will adopt technology at different rates and on their own time. And I think it's really important to understand also that as new production is done, as new manufacturing is done, automation will be a key piece. As new businesses come into Wichita, automation will be a big piece. For many of our manufacturers, the manufacturing process they have today would be way too expensive to recreate. So this is not about replacing people. This is about giving opportunity to our community to upskill and reskill to what the jobs will entail of the future. Most importantly, what the jobs of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren will be. And we need to be a part of that. We need to be a part of that mapping and a part of that history. So the only way to do that is to work together as a region and answer the critical questions of why, how, what, and when, and we believe that that will happen. And we also need to know what we need to do next year, what we need to do a decade from now, and well beyond that. So we're very excited about what we think can happen to this. Education stands behind this, K through 16, and I'd like to have a business perspective next for you, so Scott Swindeman will join you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Mayor, City Council members, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today and bring you a business perspective. And I think most of you I know, and you know of my background, but just for everybody else in the room to know, I've led multiple local businesses, and Lubrication Engineers was probably the largest business that we had. We had over 1,200 employees, and we worked worldwide, and we worked with over 10,000 manufacturing businesses in the world, most of those here in the United States. And so it gives me a unique perspective because I saw not just the aviation manufacturing we have in this sector here, but all the different manufacturing across the United States. And I've seen how rapid this change is starting to occur, which is why this future of work is so important to our region, to make sure that we come behind it and have a strategy going forward there. These industries are all very diverse, but they all have the same issue. Technology is hitting them very rapidly. They're having a tough time adapting to it. And that major adaptation issue is because they don't have the workforce to adapt into that new technology, digitalization and everything. I'll give you a quick example of this. Back in 2017, I presented a paper at a national forum for the lubricant industry, which is what I was a part of in engineering. And I talked about the fact that electric cars were going to be here before we knew it. And if you were a manufacturer of engine oils, you probably better look for something else to do because the internal combustion engine was fixing to go away. I can remember coming off that stage and having a lot of challenges from the people in that audience that said, Scott, you're wrong. The internal combustion engine will be here till 2050. You will not see a preponderance of electric vehicles on the road no sooner than 2035 to 2040. Just recently, I was at that same conference, and I had those people who challenged me then go, how did you know that electric vehicles were going to come as quickly as they came? That's technology, and if we don't recognize it today, it will surpass us very, very quickly. And that's just one minor example of what's going on in industry today. It is an industrial revolution. We are going through, as Dr. Utash talked about, in the 1918 pandemic, we're going through another industrial revolution by going to digitalization. And I have seen companies that have set back and they've said, we're really not going to go there. We know what we do. We're going to continue to manufacture the same way. I'll give you another story, another example. U.S. Steel. We all know U.S. Steel, the largest steel manufacturer in the United States. We have worked with them as long as I've been with Lubrication Engineers, which was over 40 years. They have not changed their processes. And today, what is the shortage in our supply chain? Steel. If you want to build a steel building, some of the buildings we talked about, the 100,000 square foot buildings that we're wanting to do, getting steel here just to build that building may be up to a 12 to 16 month delay. That's because U.S. Steel will not recognize that they need to change their technology. Other steel manufacturers in the world, China and Brazil, have recognized that. They can produce more steel with less employees and meet that demand at a lower cost. U.S. Steel needs to recognize what they need to do there to also meet that demand because they're not cost competitive today. And I really hate to say that about a great U.S. company, U.S. Steel, but it is the fact of the matter. They are just now recognizing how far they're behind and are working hard to figure out how do they advance and move forward. During this time, it's a big transition, and we really need to come together with a strategy for this region. Dr. Utash talked about the Deloitte Smart Factory. There is no doubt in my mind as a manufacturing leader and working with companies to figure out strategies that made them more competitive, that we will have C-level people coming through Deloitte who will look at our region and say, Can I locate that new factory here? Some factories can be retrofitted to this new technology. Some cannot. They're of age that we will have to then build a new plant. And it really makes sense to me that they will look to our region, and we will need to have that workforce ready that we can readily, you heard from Keith Long, that's one of the number one questions they're going to ask you is, do you have workforce? When I brought the Japanese to the United States in the maize development and plant, that was one of their primary questions was, did we have the workforce that could run their facility, their very high technology chemical facility? And we did. And I believe in the people we have here. This is not a plan to replace people. This is a plan to advance them, to increase their wages, and to build their wealth, and to make this region, because we are one of the real manufacturing clusters in the United States, and we need to stay ahead of this. You know, there's been some questions about why should we do this? You know, why should anybody fund this study to be worked on? And I would take you back in history and look at, you know, the National Center for Aviation Training and NICAT. That was where public and private sector, city and county came together, and we know what occurred out of that really helped our aviation. And, you know, we heard today about Max Aerostructures and others who have located here because we have that workforce. You know, you also can look at, and Jeff Fleur mentioned the downtown master plan and how that's all came together. One other one that I would mention, it's not on my list here, would be WSU Tech. And you look at the work that we've done at WSU Tech and how rapidly Dr. Utash and her team out there can train and provide us workers into our industries very, very quickly. One last story for me. In our industry, and in the world's industry, we need what they call reliability engineers. There was not a degree path in the United States 5 years ago for reliability engineer. I worked with the University of Auburn, and we developed a reliability engineering degree path. They are the only university that has reliability engineering. This is because of that change that's starting to occur in digitalization. Working with Dr. Utash at WSU, we needed reliability technicians. People with 2-year degrees that understood reliability and how we could apply it to our industry so we could remain competitive. Dr. Utash, in a very short amount of time, 8 months, put together a degree program which we're putting out reliability technicians. They also have the opportunity with her training then to move on to the University of Auburn to finish their engineering degree if they so choose. These are 6-figure salaries coming right out of school. And I can tell you, every kid that leaves University of Auburn with that degree path down there and the technicians here are immediately employed. We need hundreds more of those types of people out there. Just one example of this transition, this change that's occurring at this time. So in closing, you know, I think it's a positive impact about the future work and the strategy. And, you know, I think if we have the same passion, teamwork we've done on these past projects, we will have a very successful outcome. And we position Wichita into the area of being able to attract these new, more diverse industries to diversify our industry here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councilmember Blubog.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Scott.
Yes, Scott.
You got me intrigued on the reliability engineer. You got me intrigued with the reliability engineer. They just determine component life of
yeah.
product, basically?
Reliability engineer is going to look at either rotating assets or a stationary asset and determine life extension of that asset. If you don't do reliability engineering, what we found is componentry fails quicker in a manufacturing environment. Probably half of my business at LE was engineers in the field worldwide doing these surveys, these assessments to help industry move ahead and become more competitive. And when you do that, then of course they have an advantage against their competitors. And so, yeah, that's what it is. It is an evolving technology. Uses a lot of digitalization. You're doing vibration analysis. You're doing all kinds of things. This upskilling. And what we're doing is we're taking maintenance staff and we're upskilling them to this because they understand the piece of equipment. We're now showing how to care for that piece of equipment better. So, yeah, that's what it is.
Very important here. Thank you.
So thank you for the time to be able to come before you. I know we've had a number of speakers, but I think part of this represents is the complexity of what we're talking about with talent. There's a lot of different aspects of it that we have to consider. Again, we do believe, as you've heard from us in multiple ways, that this is a way to differentiate our region and our state. I think that if we lean into this with this knowledge, and then as Keith talked about, with the resources coming in through various grants, or even locally, as we look at it from the business community, we can make very strong, smart decisions in driving business forward and our economy forward and creating those new opportunities. One of the things that we always commit to you is that as a partner, you're an investor with us now in what we're doing. We've already talked about the regional growth plan, downtown development, talent marketing blueprint, is to keep you informed of the process, how it's proceeding. The request to you this morning is to be a partner in this, and Scott's going to walk through that in a little bit more detail, but that the city, and we also will be talking to the county tomorrow to be a partner in this, as we have on a number of things. And part of this is, again, to help us drive decisions. How is it we help to lean into things? How is it we help the business community? The Great Wichita Partnership is the business community. It's a group of companies that have come together to help drive our community forward and step into this in a positive way. Just as we're asking you to invest in this, we're investing in it as a partnership. Again, we have a large number of private funds that are generated annually to actually leverage the investment you make. We're going to take some of the private sector funds to go into this project. It's about a $500,000 initiative. And so the partnership itself will be putting $50,000 in capital in that way. But then above that, we'll be spending another $50,000 to $75,000 to help be a project manager. Again, all privately funded. The importance of this project is on the state level as well. Lieutenant Governor has allocated from Commerce $50,000. If you remember, there's the framework of growth that was just passed. That is a statewide initiative. That is an integration. And that should really excite us as a community, because we've been longing to have that connection on a statewide basis as well as the local. And that's happening with this work. Keith Loyne, again, president of Workforce Alliance in South Central Kansas, is investing $100,000 in this project as well. So that gets us to $200,000. And so what we're asking for the public sector to consider on the city and the county is $150,000 each to invest in this. Again, our goal is to leverage that. And I think we've already started to demonstrate how we'll do that. The other part of this is that as the deliverables are identified or the strategies are identified, our commitment to you is to keep you fully engaged. We sit down with you quarterly to give you reports of what's happening with the different economic initiatives. This will now be integrated into that conversation so that you know what's happening within workforce talent development. So again, thank you for the time that you've given us this morning. I know, Scott, you're going to come back up to the podium, but again, any of us can stand for questions as it returns back to the bench. Thank you.
Councilmember Claycomb.
Mayor, I don't know if this is a good time to ask questions now, or would you prefer I wait till after the end?
Well, if it's a question of, I think Mr. Fuller, then this might be the right time for it.
Thank you. I think that when we sometimes think about these kinds of projects, that it's easy to see the connection to large employers and, the technology training for them. Could you speak a little bit about what you believe that this technology training roadmap, how it will benefit our small and medium-sized businesses in our community?
Certainly. Everything that we're talking about today goes across every industry sector that we are working on. It goes across every size of business. Every size of business is dealing with technological advances in some capacity. It's going to be different based upon the industries. However, this is a strategy, Councilmember Claycomb, that will address that will help to lay forth. So any type of thing that's being laid out as training at WSU Tech or Newman or Friends, Cali, Butler, all is applicable. So however their resources as far as getting in to get the training, these institutions can help with that. Workforce Alliance, as they're looking at grant dollars coming in, again, it will influence, and Keith will tell you, they deal with varied size of companies, not just large ones. So again, our intent is that we're looking at how we grow from small to large, because again, we look at our community comprehensively, and it's integrated. It's not an either or. We want it all. And we want to really create an environment where any company, and that's part of what I think is really exciting even now with the Chamber, with John Rolfe coming in as the new CEO. As a partnership, we're taking deliberate steps to make sure that we're aligned with small business so that, again, how is it that we can make sure there's a relationship there, but also how is it that we position companies to continue to grow? Yes, ma'am.
Floor is yours, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things to close up and then stand for any questions. So again, Jeff covered this, but the request from the Greater Wichita Partnership for the city is a funding of $150,000. He mentioned the total cost of the project is $500,000. The other partners he mentioned, Sedgwick County, State of Kansas, Workforce Alliance. We anticipate that we would fund this portion, or the city's portion would be funded by ARPA, our community initiatives allocation. One of the things we'd ask is, as we look at that, if it's not consistent with the eligibility rules under ARPA, then we'd back fund that with economic development funding. And we'll make that adjustment of $150,000 in the 2021 revised budget. So the first choice is ARPA. If it's eligible, that's great. If it's not, then we'll backfill it with EcoDevo funds. And then lastly, it's the recommendation of staff that the City Council approve the resolution for funding a study regarding the future of work and workforce in Wichita and approve any necessary budget adjustments. I stand for any questions, as well as Jeff and his team.
Are there questions of staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public? See none. We'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? Councilmember Fry.
Mayor. So over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to tour several dozen businesses in our region, and every single one of them are facing the same struggles. They are having trouble finding workers with the skills they need. And we've seen studies that show over the next decade, our workforce isn't going to be there unless we do some new things. A lot of these companies, small and large, are doing new things. They're doing what they can with the resources they have. But they need help, they need assistance, they need new strategies. And so they're doing what they can, but it's not enough. We know we're in a very competitive region. And I think as a council, we have a responsibility to pursue and adopt those policies and strategies to grow our local economy. And we do that by taking care of our greatest asset. That's our people. And if we don't continue to seek out these new evolving strategies, we're not going to be able to compete in this region. So this study can be a roadmap to identify and accelerate those skills and training to strengthen our greatest asset. And it's absolutely necessary, and I thank GWP and all the partners for bringing this to us. It's a critical time, and I fully support the request. Thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I just want to echo a little bit about what Councilmember Fry said. I'll try not to be too redundant, but I especially want to thank our community partners, the Greater Wichita Partnership, the Workforce Alliance of South Central Kansas, also the state of Kansas, especially the Commerce Department and potentially the county. I understand they'll be looking at it tomorrow. But thank you for seeing an opportunity and bringing it to us. I think that this is just a great opportunity for us to be forward-thinking and forward-leading. Again, it's been said, but this isn't about taking away people's jobs. It's about upskilling and reskilling so that people can have better jobs and better quality of life. So they want to continue to stay in our community, and having a workforce that, is skilled is absolutely necessary for us to recruit. I think if we don't do this, we're going to regret it in 10 years. So I think the time is now for us to seize this opportunity. Again, thank you for all the partners. Thank you for everyone being here today, and thank you for being great leaders for our city.
Vice Mayor Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here today. I think this is critical to the growth of our city to prepare and retain and recruit individuals to fill positions that employers have now and have in the future. And I think Keith put it very well. These individuals are our families, our friends, and our neighbors. And they deserve to have this. And so, I think this work has to focus aggressively on how to advance opportunities and mobilize individuals to really develop that new workforce that we need. And I really, and I know that that Deloitte will do this, will help us do this, but we really have to leverage this roadmap to protect thousands of existing manufacturing jobs as advanced manufacturing evolves. We have to protect those jobs. We also have to provide guidance on how to deploy the $9.9 million grant received by the Workforce Alliance. What skills training is needed? We have to adapt curriculum, as Dr. Utash said, about, to be able to meet the needs of workers, to attain good, high-paying jobs. And I also think sometimes gets lost, but, applying for, as you mentioned, applying for those Economic Development Administration grants, what those do is, I know from my work at Wichita State University, those accelerate innovation and entrepreneurship in your community, they advance regional competitiveness, and they create higher skill living wage jobs. So I think those are really important. So, when it comes to jobs for our community, for, again, our family, our friends, our neighbors, I think that is really important to be able to sustain and grow our community. So thank you for the time of putting this presentation together, but also answering all the questions that I had leading up to this. I really appreciate that.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Ditto to everything that my colleagues have said. One point I would make, what I really appreciated was a conversation I had with Dr. Utash and how she spoke to how we got to how we have NIAR now. And it was the same type of work, folks coming together, not only having a study, but a working plan of action. And we see how that's paying off for our community now. And if this is that same type of opportunity, and it seems like it going forward, then I'm definitely supportive of it and appreciate how you laid that out.
All right, if there's no further discussion, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the resolution for funding a study regarding the future of work and workforce in Wichita and approve any necessary budget adjustments.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Design concept for Hoover Road from Zoo Boulevard to 29th Street North.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Council members. Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. The item before you this morning is the request for approval of design concept for improvements to Hoover Road from Zoo Boulevard to 29th Street North. Some history on this project is it started a little bit different than where we're at today, so I'll try to explain through that. In June of 2017, City Council first approved an agreement with Trans Systems for a design concept of a multi-use path along Hoover Road in the same section, as well as a traffic signal at Zoo Boulevard and Hoover Road. The reason at that time we were looking at a multi-use path only was because that private funding had constructed a path north of 29th Street up to K96 along Hoover. New development in the area was starting to extend that path south of 29th. There were multiple requests to extend that to a point at Zoo Boulevard to provide a connection primarily to and from Sedgwick County Park. So we started looking at that as a path only and a traffic signal at the time. Over the course of time, a few things changed to get us to where we are today, which I'll explain in a moment. In April of 2019, the City Council approved the design concept, a supplemental design agreement for completion of the traffic signal design and budget. And later in 2019, further budget was approved for construction of the traffic signal, continuation of the design of the path, and right-of-way acquisition. In March of 2020, the City Council approved another supplemental design agreement for work related to the traffic signal. That design has been completed. The project's been bid. Construction will start in early November and is expected to be completed by the end of the year. This says October, but because of material delivery issues, I think it'll be November, but we still expect to have that traffic signal operational by the end of the year. So then after further evaluation of the path at that point, looking at the potential impact to adjacent properties, which was going to be significant, when you build a path by itself without improving the road, the drainage becomes a big factor. So effectively to leave the drainage ditches in place, we had to move the path further off the roadway, thus having a bigger impact on properties. We were able to speak with most of you at that time, in fact, all of the council at that time, to discuss possible options before moving forward with right-of-way acquisitions. And the decision was made then to move funding forward for the improvements to Hoover Road itself between 21st and 29th. Those improvements will include the multi-use path as part of the roadway design and construction, allowing us to move the path closer to the road and lessen the impact on the adjacent properties, which I'll show you more detail in just a moment. A public meeting was held on September 2nd of this year with the neighborhood. All adjacent property owners were invited. We had really good feedback. I think it was all positive. We had a good turnout and talked through quite a few issues, and it seemed like we had everyone pretty well in favor. Then on September 13th, the District 6 Advisory Board unanimously approved the design concept that you will see today. So Hoover Road is currently a 2-lane asphalt mat street with ditches on each side and no sidewalks. The design concept would include a 3-lane roadway with center left turn lane, curb and gutter, which effectively would take the ditches away with underground storm sewers. Project would also include a 6-foot wide sidewalk on the west side and a 10-foot multi-use path, which I previously discussed, on the east side. Construction is planned for 2023, and during that time, 1 lane of traffic will be maintained at all times during construction, which is something that we talked to the neighbors about to kind of get their input on what might work best. Assuming your approval of the concept today, the city will solicit proposals for final design. Just showing what a section of this roadway looks like real quick. This is a cut section of a typical 3-lane roadway. On either side is what is shown as the underground storm sewer. And it's a little bit hard to see, but the dashed lines are the existing ditches. That's what was presenting the challenge for location of the path previously, which is on the right side of what you were looking at. This allows us to move the path and the sidewalk closer to the road, lessening the impact on existing right-of-way, which again, I think was something that the property owners were glad to see, that we were able to come to this point. It does put us further off on when this path connection will be made, but we reached out to those we had heard from previously, and I think they're just glad to see that something's moving forward, especially with the signal being in place. Let me go back. This is a blown-up section of what the 3-lane roadway will look like. In particular, I wanted to highlight the blue area, which is on the east side. North is to the right. Previously in this area, that blue section would have been what was needed for right-of-way to build the path outside of the ditch section, which was 15 feet. Being able to move this over now, we've lessened that to needing 5.5 feet. And in multiple areas, we were able to eliminate the need for right-of-way at all. That's just one specific larger area that we have a lot lesser impact on the property. This shows the property limits. Upper left is 21st and Hoover. We're working closely with the Northwest Treatment Plant Facility Project. As there are pipelines crossing through that intersection, we'll coordinate design and reconstruction of that intersection with the pipeline work. As I mentioned, traffic signal at Zoo and Hoover will be under construction soon. It will be in place by the end of the year. And then the bottom right shows the north limits being just south of 29th Street North. There are no financial considerations. Assuming your approval, pending your approval of the design concept today, we will move forward to solicit for final design. The existing budget will cover that cost for now. We will return to the council at a later date for construction funding. Staff recommends the City Council approve the design concept, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Are there any questions of staff? Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. It says none under financial consider. Do we have a ballpark figure, or do we have any?
So we
idea?
have, and I probably should have included that information. The CIP includes $4.5 million in 2023 for construction of the project.
So you're going to pay for the design out of that $4.5 million?
We've got the design covered within the existing budget right now, and the $4.5 million could be used for acquisition of the right-of-way, depending on where we end up with the design cost, and then for all of construction, correct.
So you think it all stays within there right now?
Yeah, I based on estimates and our last previous projects of expanding to 3-lane roadways, we feel comfortable with that number.
Is there further discussion or questions from staff? See none, thank you. Is there input from the public on this item? See none, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? If there is no discussion on the item, then the chair recognizes Councilmember Claycomb of District 6, for which this resides.
Thank you. As you can see, this has been going on our discussion of this has been going on for quite some time, even before I was on council in 2017. So I really want to thank the neighbors along Hoover Road for just being actively engaged in the process of designing this project, because of their involvement, changes were made to make this a better project. I also want to thank city staff. You have answered many, many questions that I have had and that the neighbors have had, and I think developed a concept that takes many of those questions and concerns into account. And I know it's not really part of this, but that long-awaited traffic signal later this year is going to be so appreciated. And I know that staff will stay engaged with the neighbors as this project moves forward. So with that, I would like to move that City Council approve the design concept and authorize the necessary signatures.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Have received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Funding for improvements to 17th Street from Broadway to I-135 and Mount Vernon and Broadway to Southeast Boulevard.
Again, Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. The item before you this morning is a request for funding for improvements to two major arterial capital projects, 17th Street North from Broadway to I-135 and Mount Vernon from Broadway to Southeast Boulevard. As these projects wind down construction, both are nearing completion. The request today is similar for both projects, so that's why we put them together, or for funding to wrap things up, primarily related to working with the railroads and the cost of railroad permitting. So some quick background on 17th Street. In November of 2019, a project to provide improvements at 17th Street North was bid for construction with all bids exceeding the estimate. In December of 2019, the City Council approved an additional $1,500,000 in funding to cover that low bid. And then the City Council approved agreements with the Union Pacific Railroad in February of 2020, which was obviously after the bid was awarded. So keep that in mind. I'll explain that more in just a minute because that's a factor on both of these projects. For Mount Vernon, in that same time frame, November of 2019, a project was approved to improve Mount Vernon, Broadway to Southeast Boulevard. It again, construction with all the bids, was bid for construction with all bids exceeding the estimate. Same deal as 17th Street. City Council approved an additional $1,400,000 for that project. And as you can see then in May of 2020, the railroad agreements were approved. So the previously approved budgets, estimated cost for railroad construction and permit fees based on best available information at the time. Both of these projects included federal funding through WAMPO, which comes with a obligation date within the federal fiscal year that the funds are allocated. If we do not obligate those funds by that, within that federal fiscal year, we effectively will lose all of the funding, which was a considerable amount for both of these projects. We had to move on with our best estimate. Even having worked with the railroads for several years, literally prior to the point of bidding, we still did not have final cost. There were some staff changes within the railroad company, the same company for both projects, that delayed completion of the final agreements and permits until after the revised budgets were approved. Also, the funding that we're asking for today on Mount Vernon has to do with change orders that resulted in unanticipated utility conflicts because of the narrow construction corridor. So this is a lot of numbers. I'll kind of hit this from a high level. So the approved budgets and LST funding were approved by the City Council on December 17th of 2019. Both budgets were increased at that same time. At this time, staff recommends transferring a total of $700,000 in LST funding available from the East Kellogg project. Because of where the East Kellogg project is currently at, contingency funding was reserved for expected change order cost, and it has now progressed to the point that many of the potential added costs have been completed, thus the contingency can be reduced. The funding would be $300,000 to 17th Street and $400,000 to Mount Vernon, as we discussed. So staff requests a waiver of City Policy Number 2 regarding the use of project savings to allow this transfer to happen. The total revised budget for 17th Street will be just over $11.4 million, and for Mount Vernon, just over $8.2 million. An amending resolution has been prepared that also reduces the East Kellogg budget to a total of $55,850,000. And again, that's by transferring $300,000 to 17th Street, $400,000 to Mount Vernon. This will wrap up these projects. Both are nearing completion, should be open to full traffic soon. Staff recommends City Council approve the revised budgets, waive City Council Policy Number 2 regarding the use of project savings to allow the transfer of funds, adopt the amending of resolutions, and authorize the necessary signatures, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Are there questions of staff? See none. Thank you. Is there input from the public? There is no input from the public. Bring discussion back to the bench. Is there discussion on the item? See none. With that, the chair will recognize Vice Mayor Johnson as part of this project, resides in District 1.
Thanks, Mayor. I would move that the City Council approve the revised budgets, waive City Council Policy Number 2 regarding the use of project savings to allow the transfer of funds, and adopt the amending resolutions and authorize the necessary signatures.
I will second. Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk, open the roll. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Repair or removal of dangerous and unsafe structures.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. I'm Kaylin Nethercott with MABCD. The properties under consideration today were part of a group of 15 cases that were first reviewed by the Board of Code Standards and Appeals on July 12th. In addition to the 8 that are being referred to you today for consideration, I wanted to let you know 2 of those properties were returned to regular code enforcement due to progress made by the owners. 2 were deferred for review at a later Board of Code Standards and Appeals meeting. 3 received time extensions at the owner's request and will be reviewed again by the Board of Code Standards and Appeals. In preparation for the Board of Code Standards and Appeals meeting on July 12th, property owners or their representatives were asked to specifically be prepared to discuss the following if the intent was to repair the structure: how they would pay any delinquent property taxes. They need to demonstrate ability and a plan to maintain the premise conditions adequately, the ability and a plan to maintain the structure in a safe and a secure manner, the financial ability to complete repairs in a timely manner, and then also to present any structural or engineering reports that had been previously obtained on the property. Owners or agents were also asked to schedule an interior inspection of these properties with Courtney Capello, our chief building official, prior to attending the Board of Code Standards and Appeals meeting. If the owners indicated their intent was to raise the structure on their own, they were asked to provide detailed contract information with a licensed demolition contractor. Now, none of the 8 properties that you're reviewing today had representation at the Board of Code Standards and Appeals meeting public hearing. These are scattered throughout Districts 1 and 3. And I know Vice Mayor Johnson is going to remind me that it's best to deal with these individually as we move forward for motions. So I'll just save you that time for reminding. Okay. The first property today for consideration is at 1021 North Estelle Avenue. This property has had an open housing case for 3 years and 8 months. A uniform criminal complaint has been issued. The property has been the subject of environmental court. The property taxes for 2017 through 2020 are delinquent in the amount of $3,271.38. In the past 3 years, the property has been abated, mowed, and secured, with fees totaling $1,311.16. At this time, the premise is secured. The structure has been vacant for at least 10 years and has been badly damaged by fire.
Is the owner or representative here? Okay. I'd love to hear from you, sir. Sorry for that.
Yes, I live I'm from Dallas, Texas. I used to live here, and it's my mother's house. I put a roof on it right before the COVID started, and everything kind of, I'm self-employed, and everything kind of went downhill from there. And before the roof, I plumbed it and had it rewired several years back, and right after I did it, I came back in town to close it up, and somebody had got in it and stole all the electric out of it and the plumbing out of it. And I just put $10,000 on the roof, and I just paid $1,500 yesterday on the taxes. I hadn't been in the house in several years. I shouldn't even put the roof on it. And I'm a contractor myself, and the basement walls are in bad shape. So at this point, I want the land, but I want to just figure out demolishing it and later building something else on it. But I don't want to put any more money into the project. You know, and I was going to sell it, but two of my family members deceased, and it was going to cost me like $5,000 to get both of their names off of the property to be able to sell it. So it's just been kind of like a roller coaster ride for me that I want to get off of, but I don't want to lose my land. It was my mother's house, and that's where I grew up at, and I do want the land. So I'm just now finding out that and making the decision to demo it, so I don't have any paperwork or hadn't notified anybody on what it's going to take to get rid of the house. But I'm trying to work with y'all. I mean, the house need to go. It looks terrible. Trees on the city side is overgrown on the sidewalk. I mean, I did all I can do. But like I say again, I do want my land. And I'm going to get the rest of the taxes paid up and start networking on what it takes to tear it down. You know, I don't know if y'all have a list that maybe y'all can give me, because I don't know any contractors here or anything. But if y'all could help me with a list of contractors that demo, and then that way I can figure out getting this headache off of y'all.
I appreciate you being here. I think Kaylin can help with that.
Okay. Excuse me. Thomas Washington. Yes. Yeah, okay, yeah.
We did. Let me give you my card.
Okay.
There's a little business to do here. Give me a minute.
Thought it was stand at ease.
If you will call this.
Okay. Okay. All right. Is that all? Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the interruption. Thank you.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Yeah, I actually had a question for the property owner. I apologize.
Come back.
I was just a little bit confused. Are you asking are you wanting to demo the property yourself, or are you asking for the city?
Well, I don't know the best way to go. I don't know anyone here, and if it was in Texas, I could get it done. But here, I mean, I just want to go to the cheapest route to be able to keep my land and to get the headache. You know, if y'all do it, and I maybe can set me up a payment plan or something, or, I mean, I just need help getting it down. I can't do it on my own. As I was making money, I was dumping it into the project, and this is just what happened to me. You know, it really hurts to even be talking about tearing the house down, but at this shape, looking at the foundation yesterday in the basement, it'd be $60,000, $70,000 just to repair the foundation. You know, and it's not worth that.
If it would please Mayor and Council, we would be very comfortable in a 90-day extension on this to allow staff time to work with Mr. Washington, just since we've got his contact information now. We might be able to provide some direction and assistance with what he wants to have done.
Would that require a motion?
Yes, sir.
Why don't we let Vice Mayor make the motion then?
Thanks, Mayor. If there are no other questions or concerns, I would move that we give the 1021 North Estelle property a 90-day extension to address the concerns. With this one, I'll break my tradition and bring it back to the bench after 90 days.
You do want it back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second the motion. There's no discussion on the motion. Clerk will open a roll. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Our next property is 1145 North Minneapolis Avenue. This property's had an open housing case. Bear with me a moment. I've lost my ability to move forward. Property's had an open housing case for 2 years and 11 months. A uniform criminal complaint has been issued, and the property's been the subject of an environmental court. The police department has requested MABCD assistance with this property. In the last 5 years, there have been 6 reported police incidents at this location. The property has been vacant for a number of years, and as you'll see from the photos, the structure is missing vinyl siding, has a badly worn roof with missing shingles, and rotting wood trim and framing members.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I guess is this property owner or representative here? Okay. That property, I drove by there, it did look pretty bad and without anyone here. Find my motion stuff. I would move that the city council close the public hearing, declare the building to be a dangerous, unsafe structure, accept the BBCSA recommended actions to proceed with condemnation, allowing 10 days to start demolition and 10 days to complete removal of the structures.
I will second the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If there is none, clerk open the roll. Members cast their vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass.
Thank you. Our next property is at 1158 North Delrose. This property has had an open housing case for 1 year and 6 months. A uniform criminal complaint has been issued, and the property has been the subject of environmental court. The 2020 property taxes are delinquent in the amount of $1,102.41. In 2021, the property has been abated, boarded, and mowed with assessments for those services totaling $3,344.84. The premise conditions are not maintained. In the last 5 years, there have been 9 reported police incidents at this location. The property has been damaged by fire and vacant for at least 8 months. The concrete basement walls and the front porch are cracking, the roof is badly worn, and the wood trim and framing members are rotten. And it looks like we need to abate it again.
The discussion. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Is this property owner here today? Not seeing them. I would make a motion that the city council close the public hearing, declare the building to be a dangerous and unsafe structure, and accept the BBCSA recommended actions to proceed with condemnation, allowing 10 days to start demolition, and 10 days to complete removal of any structures.
I'll second the motion. Clerk, open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass.
Our next property for consideration is 1317 North Lorraine Avenue. The property has an open housing case that's been in place for 3 years and 2 months. A UCC has been issued, and the property has been the subject of environmental court. The property taxes are delinquent in the amount of $308.33. Premise conditions are not well maintained, and the structure is not secured. In the past 5 years, 1 police incident has been reported at this address. The structure is vacant and open with a badly worn composition roof, deteriorating front porch, and rotting or missing soffits, fascia, and rafters.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Is this property owner here today?
See none.
Not seeing them. I would move that the city council close the public hearing, declare the building to be a dangerous and unsafe structure, and accept the BBCSA recommended actions to proceed with condemnation, allowing 10 days to start demolition and 10 days to complete removal of the structure.
I'll second the motion. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass.
Thank you. Our next property is 2226 East Random Road. This property's had an open housing case for 1 year and 8 months. There's a special assessment in place for abatement in the amount of $905.93. That was done in 2021. The premise is not being maintained and the structure is unsecured. In the last 5 years, there have been 11 reported police incidents at this location. And as you will see in the photos, the property has been very badly damaged by fire, has cracking concrete basement walls, rotted and missing siding, a fire-damaged roof, rotting wood trim and framing members, and a badly deteriorated front porch. I will say that the daughter of the deceased owner of this property has been in contact with our office. All of the family is out of state. She shared with me yesterday that the property has not been successfully probated, so they have no legal right to do anything with it. So I will have another conversation with her later today about what it looks like after a house is condemned and removed and what that might mean for their efforts to maintain ownership of the property. So they couldn't be here today in person.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. In that conversation, did they show any interest in trying to save the property? Or I guess that's the structure, not the property.
It was their mother's home, and I think there's always an emotional attachment to that, but the practicalities on this one is it's not salvageable. We can't even secure it. We'd have to rebuild the back of it to even get it secured. So I think at this point, perhaps their interest is more in retaining the land and not so much the structure.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Well, I would make a motion that the city council close the public hearing, declare the building to be a dangerous and unsafe structure, and accept the BBCSA recommended actions to proceed with condemnation, allowing 10 days to start demolition and 10 days to complete removal of the structure.
I'll second the motion. Motion is made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 78 votes, that motion does pass. Bless you.
Our next property is 1747 South Santa Fe Avenue, and it does include both the front and rear structures. This property's had an open housing case for 2 years and 4 months. A uniform criminal complaint has been issued. The property has been the subject of environmental court. Both the front and rear structures have unsecured crawl spaces. In the last 5 years, there have been 2 reported police incidents at this location. The structure's been vacant for at least a year, has a cracking foundation, missing siding, badly worn composition roof, rotting front and rear porches, and rotting wood trim.
Is the owner of the property here? Would you like to speak to the property? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Rad Mansour. I bought this property back in February, and first I bought it, we put new roof on it. We fixed the siding where it was broken. We did some improvements to the property. I already spent $17,000, $18,000 on it. My plan is to fix the whole thing inside and out, but I just need more time. And I bought the property as is. It was already case open on it. I didn't even know that until I get the letter back. So I just need more time to fix it up. I believe it's in much better shape right now, and I'm trying to fix it up probably in the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Staff, has staff been able to get an update on the repairs of that property, or?
This is the first contact we've had with Mr. Mansour, but we can certainly do that, follow up. Since we have an engaged owner on this one, we'd certainly be willing to give more time for repairs should council desires to do so.
Please.
I have one thing. We did the pull permit for the roof on both properties. It's like two property in the same two structures in the same property. We did pull permit to take very damaged garage. We took it off. I've been the siding. We changed the whole sidings where it was damaged. We've been taking care of the weed and grass in weekly, every 2 weeks on a schedule. So we've been putting a lot of work in that place.
Okay. Councilmember Cirillo.
He did mention the roof. Kaylin, can you corroborate that the roof has been replaced?
I can't from the photos I have.
Okay.
I apologize. We would be able to verify that in our permitting system, but it's not something we've picked up so far. And again, if council desires to give more time on this, that's not a problem.
Okay. How much time would you request? Is 60 days enough?
As far as fixing, I mean, those are not the very recent pictures. I know when I talked to an inspector last month, he said that usually they would have the permit that you pulled. So I'm not sure really. I'll probably talk to Kelly and see what needs to be done more, and definitely we'll get it done very soon.
Staff, what is a typical extension to get to the council member's question? Is it 60 days, 90 days?
Since we're coming into winter, probably 90 on this one would be comfortable. And then we can certainly either provide updates from staff or he can come back at that time, whatever you're comfortable with. I wouldn't go less than 90 given the scope of work.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I would request that we give the property owner at 1747 South Santa Fe Avenue an extension of 90 days.
I'll second the motion. Motion is made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members can cast their vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Our next property is 1809 East 61st Street. It's a manufactured home. This property's had an open housing case for 1 year and 7 months. A uniform criminal complaint has been issued, and the property's been the subject of environmental court. Property taxes are delinquent for 2018 and 2019 in the amount of $1,546.66. The property has been abated, boarded, and mowed in 2021 with assessments totaling $3,531.83. As part of that abatement, we did remove a badly damaged accessory structure that was collapsing. It had been damaged in the fire. In the last 5 years, there have been 10 reported police incidents at this location. The property's been vacant for an unknown period of time and has been badly damaged by fire. I can tell you that the owner of this property is deceased, and we have not had family members who have stepped up to take responsibility for it.
Is the owner of the property here?
Maybe in spirit.
Is what?
He may be here in spirit.
That's right. Does this reside in District 3 or District 1? District 3? Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I would recommend that the City Council close the public hearing, declare the building to be dangerous and unsafe structure, and accept the BBCSA recommended actions to proceed with condemnation, allowing 10 days to start demolition and 10 days to complete removal of the structures.
Second. Motion is made and seconded. Clerk can will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass.
We are going to get to end on a good note today, a very good note. 2509 South Patty, as you will see, is a fire damaged property. Since these photos were taken, a new roof has been put on. The windows are mostly replaced. Thanks to a new owner, there are significant repairs taking place, and we are comfortable in recommending that this return to regular code enforcement.
Do we have any after pictures?
I'm sorry, I don't. We didn't have enough, we can't get them into the slideshow with as much lead time as we have to have for these, but I have them. I have seen them. It looks much better already.
Excellent. Councilmember Cirillo.
Is the owner of the property represented today?
He is not. He asked me if he needed to come, and I told him I was confident that we could represent his remodel and renovation progress adequately. It is someone that's known to us, and he does tend to do a good job in these instances, so we're very comfortable with this one.
Councilmember Fry.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. With the new owner, does that mean all of the taxes and special assessments have been taken care of as well?
That's a good question, and I can't answer it yet because it's not far enough in the deed registration process for us to be able to determine that. But I would assume so. But again, the change of ownership is so recent that I can't even answer that. Okay.
Further discussion? Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we take staff's recommended action and return this property back to code enforcement, normal code enforcement.
Yep, return to regular code enforcement. We'll take it out of the condemnation process.
I'll second the motion. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass.
We'll see you in 2 weeks with 5 more. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Combined public hearing, 2022 annual agency plan and 2022 capital fund grant estimate.
Good morning, Director Stang.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Sally Stang, Director of Housing and Community Services for the record. Today I have for you our 2022 Housing Authority Annual Action Plan, Agency Plan, and Capital Fund Estimated Budget. So public housing authorities are required to prepare an annual agency plan. The Wichita Housing Authority has 578 units of public housing and 3,187 housing choice vouchers. The Housing Choice Voucher Program, the jurisdiction is actually all of Sedgwick County, Butler County, and Harvey County with the exception of the city of Newton. And the annual agency plan documents include our method for rent determination, general operating policies and procedures, and a statement of the capital improvements. So some of our accomplishments over the last year is expanding our housing supply, including applications for additional VASH vouchers. We also did foster youth to independence vouchers. We also increased our mainstream vouchers as well as the new emergency housing voucher. So you'll see that our total voucher allocation increased from 3,037 in 2020 to 3,187 in 2021. Housing management, our Housing Choice Voucher Program remains a high performer as graded by HUD, and our public housing program a standard performer, which kind of shows why we're moving into repositioning our public housing program. We've promoted self-sufficiency, and we've had 127 participants in the voucher program enroll in family self-sufficiency. 7 are slated to graduate in 2021, and 2 are ready to move into home ownership. We've had just 105 public housing and housing choice voucher participants participate in our CSBG individual and family development program, where they receive individualized case management services. And it's a way that we can uniquely leverage different funding sources to support across programs. And we've had 100 youth from our voucher and public housing programs participate in the Way to Work this past year. We also worked with Cox Communication to expand internet access for our low-income families and delivered over 2,500 food boxes to seniors during the COVID pandemic. So we've had quite a few accomplishments this past year. For 2022, of course, as we always do, we will intentionally advocate and market for fair housing. We want to maintain our high rating in our voucher program, strengthen the self-sufficiency program, continue the Way to Work program to expand youth employment opportunities, effectively transition our senior public housing properties to RAD. As we know, we're going to close in the next 10 days, so 2022 will be a year of construction on that avenue. And we want to gain approval from HUD to reposition the single-family units. For capital fund, we're always having to guesstimate the amount of funding that we receive. Our safe harbor estimate is always just guess. What did we receive last year? That's what we're going to plan for the next year. So just over $1.5 million in capital funds, broken down into operations, administration, fees, and costs, specifically rehab, demo, and disposition expenses for those single-family homes and relocation expenses that will be required for those single-family homes also. So as we've seen before, we have 352 individual single-family homes located throughout the city, represented by yellow pins and targets. So we are going to apply to HUD to demolish and or sell those properties with a preference for continued affordable housing rentals and affordable homeownership with right of first refusal for existing residents. We'll provide those residents permanent relocation through the Housing Choice Voucher Program with the assistance of our relocation coordinator, R.H. Brown and Associates. And we can provide project-based vouchers for single-family units when developers want to maintain them as affordable rental units. We can use the capital funds that we identified earlier to leverage other resources for rehabilitation and down payment assistance. And we think this is a unique opportunity with these single-family homes to leverage the affordable housing project that's coming down the pipe. And it might be a source of funding as well as Federal Home Loan Bank and possibly tax credits to develop new multifamily replacement rental housing. So as we dispose of our current portfolio, the goal is to then build replacement housing in small complex sites. So the Housing Authority, the plan schedule included a resident advisory board review, and as we've always had challenges getting participants to commit to serving on a standing board, we invited all participants in both the public housing and the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program the opportunity to comment on the agency plan and held a virtual meeting on September 22nd. As required, the plan has been out for public review and comment from August 21st to October 4th. We have a combined public hearing today for both the agency plan and the capital budget. And we have to submit to HUD by the 15th of October as they get a 75-day comment or review period before approving our agency plan, which would be then effective for January 1st, 2022. So it is our recommendation that the Housing Authority Board close the combined public hearing, approve the Wichita Housing Authority 2022 Annual Agency Plan, the 2022 Capital Fund Program estimated budget, and updates on the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, and authorize the necessary signature to certify the documents for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I stand for any questions. And just remind, we do have our resident board member here for the vote today.
Excellent. Is there questions of staff? Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally, for this presentation. And this is related, but not exactly. Last night at my district advisory board, we had a little bit of a discussion about affordable housing. And it was brought up that HUD's definition of affordable housing might be different than my definition of affordable housing. Could you, in case some of those folks are watching, could you just tell us a little bit about that definition, please?
Sure. HUD defines affordable housing as housing that is affordable to a household that makes 80% or less of the area median income. And in Wichita, that's just over 75,000 is the area median income for a family of 4. So it would be affordable, whether it's affordable rental or affordable home ownership, meaning that the family is spending less than 30% of their monthly adjusted income on that housing, whether that be rental, mortgage, or rent payments, inclusive of utilities.
Is there further questions of staff? See none, thank you. Is there input from the public? We'll start with Mr. John Todd, and then we can go to folks over on this side.
My name is John Todd. I live at 1559 Payne here in Wichita, Kansas. I come as a private citizen to speak about the 352 houses that are currently owned by the Wichita, City of Wichita. I didn't come prepared to speak. However, I have been tracking these houses for quite some time. Oddly enough, over the years, they've been pretty well maintained. They have 30-year roofs on them. They absolutely need to be sold to owner occupants. I would not recommend selling them to groups that want to rent them out. Your best quality for neighborhoods is when you have home ownership, and where people take pride in their homes, you'll see uplift. And a lot of these houses now are vacant. I have no idea why they're vacant, but when the places for people, your land bank, they talked quite at length about the inefficient use of property. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a prime example of a terribly inefficient way to utilize property. There's trash around some of them. I noticed high weeds. I have pictures that I've taken from this spring. It really, frankly, is a disgrace the way they've been maintained. They absolutely need to be sold. There's one in Councilmember Johnson's district that I know of. County appraiser has it appraised at $30,000. It's probably worth more than that, but if it's sold for $30,000, it would go back on the tax rolls, which is a positive thing. It pays for fire, police, and schools then. As it sits right now, it's not paying any taxes, ad valorem taxes, and it is sitting vacant. I had a lender run a cost estimate, and with the minimum amount down on a good FHA loan, the payments would be in the range of $300 a month. Ladies and gentlemen, this is affordable housing, and you really need to proceed as quickly as possible to put these on the market. I'm not in the business of selling houses anymore, so I'm retired, but there are plenty of real estate brokers around town that would love to get involved and help you dispose of these. And the stipulation that I would put on them, I would sell them to owner occupants. So I'd be glad to stand for questions.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have any questions for you, but I did want to allow Bob or Sally an opportunity to actually tell you what the plan is with those.
Okay.
Probably want to note this day on the calendar. Mr. Todd and I are in agreement.
Is that fairly unusual, Mr. Manager?
It's probably 50-50, John. We are developing an affordable housing strategy right now using the $5 million the council has earmarked for Affordable Housing Fund. These houses are part of a strategy that we're developing to get back into owner-occupied properties. I can let Sally talk a little bit about it. We're not ready to bring the recommendation forward yet, but the task force or committee is working on that, and so this will be part of that strategy.
Thank you, sir. And part of the reason they are sitting vacant is because this was part of a larger RAD application that was started back in 2017. There was an attempt to try and we had secured low-income housing tax credits could not secure an investor partner to purchase those credits. Tried to secure an FHA 221D4 loan, HUD wouldn't even back it, saying that it was too difficult to manage and maintain scattered site rental housing. So we had to change gears, but because it was entered into a repositioning strategy, we are actually forbidden from releasing them once they vacate, which is an unfortunate circumstance that it has taken so long to get to this point. But we are working with a technical assistance provider paid for by HUD, who's working with us to help us prepare the Section 18 and Section 32 or Section 22, depending on which path we take, application to HUD for disposition of all of the properties. So, thank you.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. Sally, I wanted to ask you, I know in the past, whenever HUD foreclosures are on the open market, generally they're open to owner occupants for the first 30 days. Is there something we could exercise like that with some of this property when we go to sell it?
So as I mentioned in the presentation, the right of first refusal is of the existing occupant. The challenge is these are public housing program participants, and very few of them are actually in a position to be able to be ready to get a mortgage. But those who are, we have been identifying for the last year, those we think we could help prepare to get ready for home ownership. But
So would we be able to add that, the 30-day, or could we look at that possibly to, even if it's not that tenant, if we're gonna, okay, the tenant's not gonna buy it, we're gonna go out there and put it on the open market, could we do some kind of 30-day, or could we look at that at least to see about trying to target home ownership?
we can absolutely target home ownership. When we make them available, whether that be by just putting them on the market or putting them out under an RFP, we could have stipulations for home ownership where we care to. The challenge in keeping them affordable, just on the open market, you're going to have a challenge in that you're not going to have people coming in and flipping them and not maintaining them as affordable housing in any type of period. They could do that almost immediately. Whereas and then my other fear is you're going to have someone come in and scoop these up and put a Band-Aid of repairs, because we know they all need significant rehabilitation. One of our concerns is a developer coming in, putting very, very little money and then turning it around and trying to sell it as first-time home ownership to someone who now has a nightmare because they have deferred maintenance and other things that are going to be needed to be done in the near future. So we're being very deliberate in how we would put these properties forward in a means that is in the best interest for those who will be occupying them and the neighborhood.
Just a reminder, we're working with development strategies to prepare the affordable housing plan for you. Sally has worked with the consultant on an approach that may address some of these concerns. It's still early in terms of developing the concept, but if we're successful, I think we will talk about houses available on the market that will be in good shape and available for single family, and at the same time allow us to benefit low and moderate income families in terms of housing that's available for them as well. So.
All right. Further questions for staff? We have more public input. Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. My name is Chris, and this is Morgan, and we are staff members from the International Rescue Committee here in Wichita. And as most of you know, we will be receiving around 400 Afghan refugees. So we are here today to just kind of talk about the need for affordable housing, and more specifically, the housing vouchers. When our clients use housing vouchers, they have greater access to affordable housing that leads to greater self-sufficiency and more community integration with our clients.
Well said. So for that point, in addition to the 400 Afghan clients that we'll be receiving, we will be receiving around 550 from other ethnicities, nationalities around the world. And so we have greatly enjoyed our partnership with the voucher system and really look forward to maintaining that and utilizing that for our clients. Again, as Chris said, to echo that self-sufficiency piece is vital to our clients as well as to their contributions back into our city.
Are there any questions? So with that, would you all stand by in case there is questions about refugee resettlement?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there any further input from the public? If not, we can bring discussion back to the bench. Is there further discussion on this? I will say that after consultation with our staff and with consulting with the governor's office and for folks who are reading the news, we will be receiving Afghan refugees who fought alongside our military in Afghanistan in the promotion of democracy and frankly have lost everything because of it. In Wichita, I think we have an opportunity to do our part in ensuring that we treat people who kept our military members alive over in Afghanistan, that we treat them right. So after consulting with staff, we realized that to make any changes to the current agenda item would have to be done from the bench. So with that, I have an amendment that I would like to offer for consideration that was drafted by staff and vetted by staff. And the amendment reads, amendment to item number 8, non-consent housing agenda item 1. In an effort to assist with the expected influx of refugees from Afghanistan, I propose creating an additional limited referral-based preference for refugees who, without assistance, will be homeless. The limited referral-based preference would be limited to 50 vouchers in the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, which represents only 1.6% of the total vouchers available. This preference would be administered similar to the existing limited referral-based homeless preference, but in partnership with the International Rescue Committee, providing referrals and the necessary case management. So that is the motion for this amendment. Is there a second?
For discussion, I will second that. I had a...
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question, if we do that, when would those types of vouchers come back? How long would that last?
Sure. With a cap of 50 vouchers, the referrals from the International Rescue Committee would actually be placed on the waiting list. But with that preference, they actually pop to the top faster than a regular applicant. So they would continue to be placed onto the waiting list till we hit that 50 cap. And at that point, we wouldn't serve another one with that preference until somebody fell off the program, either moved on, didn't need assistance any further, for whatever reason they come off the program.
Okay, and I guess final question. It's my understanding that, one, I think we should help our Afghan folks who helped our military, but they would need case management, right? So is IRC gonna serve as case managers for these 50 or?
That would be a requirement of the MOU that would be brought back to the council for approval. But yes, to be able to provide that, both that referral and the case management necessary for the families.
Okay.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. Sally, I just want to make sure that I understand that's okay, because housing is complicated, and especially for me. So we have people right now who are on a waiting list, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So is the request that these refugees be moved above priority for people who are already on the waiting list?
It would, yes.
And
by
so,
giving them an additional preference point, they would pop to the top of the list faster than others on the waiting list, except the limited referral-based homeless preference gets
sure.
that.
So could you give me an estimate of how long somebody is on the waiting list? So, because my fear, and I'm working with the International Rescue Committee and trying to do everything that we can to commit our support, you all are definitely driving the bus. Our role is to help and support you in any capacity we can in helping you provide resources. So it's not that I'm not supportive of trying to help our refugees, but my fear is we have community members here that it's our responsibility to also assist. And if they've been waiting for safe and affordable housing and now they get bumped, for lack of a better word, I just wonder if that's the right direction. So do you have an estimate of how long someone's on a waiting list?
Sure, right now, the people being pulled from the waiting list have been on the waiting list for 10 to 12 months, which is significantly less than the national average for the voucher program. The national average for the voucher program is 42 months on a waiting list.
And just to follow up on the line of thinking here, and really the line in the amendment being offered, who without assistance will be homeless? These folks are not just homeless, they are nationless. They have lost their homes because they were helping our troops survive over in Afghanistan. So we already have 10% of our vouchers that is dedicated to the population who is experiencing homelessness, who do rise to the top of that list because of their experience in homelessness. And this is asking for 1.6%. Because these people are not only homeless, these are full families who are nationless because of their choice to support democracy and American values overseas versus supporting terrorism. And so I think that is important to note with this amendment. They will be homeless without this. Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. What's the duration of a lease?
The initial term of the lease is 12 months.
Okay. I hadn't heard any discussion on the mayor's amendment before this morning, and I guess I'd like to have a little bit more information as to what this really does to the people who've been waiting for 10 to 12 months, what it does to the overall process of the properties. I mean, I guess I'm just kind of.
Sure. So when we have these preferences, we don't sit vouchers on a shelf waiting for referrals. That would be really poor management of the voucher program. We try and keep as many vouchers as possible leased up at all times, and we handle those with preferences through attrition. So we lose 30 to 40 families off the program every month due to either changing circumstances, moving out of state sometimes, getting married. They go off the program for many, many different reasons, but our average is 30 to 40 a month. And so we pull from the waiting list every month. We've pulled every month since January, pulled names off the waiting list. Some of those have preference. Some of those are just directly from the waiting list. So we've pulled a significant number of people from the general waiting list without preference in the last year. That's just indicative of the fact that the waiting list is only 10 to 12 months versus almost 4 years, for 3.5, 4 years in other places. But yes, it does. It does take that individual family and prioritizes them up to 50 units. One of our big concerns is we're going to have families coming into our community, and we have a tremendous lack of shelter for families. We just don't have shelters that are equipped to handle families at all, let alone large families. So without having some sort of resource, we don't have really many options of what we can do with these families as they come into our community.
So what's your average availability per month? I'm trying to better understand what the impact of 50 families does.
Like I said, we about 30 to 40 units turnover every month. So 50 units could have a 6-week impact on someone on the waiting list if you do the math. This community's been a little bit challenging in that even with this, what I call a fresh waiting list, these are people who've applied within the last year. It's not like we're working with people who applied 3 or 4 years ago. When we send out notices to people that we've pulled their name from the list, only 50% respond. That's tremendously lower than other jurisdictions. And when I ask staff about it, they're like, it's just always been that way here. I don't know why, but only about 50% do respond. Our goal in what we call leveling is, we're trying to balance people going out and people coming in and keeping utilization up, is to pull 100 names from the waiting list every month, because we know only 50 are going to respond. And then some are still going to fall off and not be successful in leasing up, which gives us that 30 to 40 influx each month. So it is definitely an analysis game. But
Do we know anything about career transition or anything like that for the refugees?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do we know anything about career opportunities?
Sure.
How that
I mean,
works?
linked with the voucher program, we have both the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, we have the Individual Family and Development Program, which are both volunteer programs for any participant in the program. But then also the IRC would be responsible for providing case management, casework services, try and link people with job opportunities and other resources. And it looks like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, please, feel free to, it looked like you had something to add to it, so feel free to come on up and give us some more details.
I'm sorry. Would the council like us to talk a little bit about the case management services that we provide?
Please.
So for the first 30 to 90 days, they are, specifically our Afghan arrivals, will be in a program called the Afghan Assistance Placement Program, which mirrors the typical refugee placement program with initial case management, things like getting the kids set up in school, getting their social security cards, and just basically generally setting up their life in the first 30 to 90 days. After that, they move specifically to me. I am one of the employment specialists. It is my whole responsibility with finding our refugee arrivals employment in the Wichita area. And to give a little context, right now, our average wage for our clients is about $13.50 an hour. Our clients work a range of different jobs, from manufacturing to assembly to meat packing, and they are typically enrolled with me anywhere from 6 months to a year. And the nice thing about our employment programs is they do have access to me specifically for up to 5 years. So until they are able to become a citizen, they have access to employment services. So if one of our clients experiences a job loss, they get laid off, they just don't like their job, they can come enroll with me at any point during those first 5 years. And then we also provide a service called adjustment and referrals, which is where a client is largely self-sufficient by themselves, but they just have a random question, usually about health insurance or about food stamps, or I need my landlord to do something. It's just kind of that one-off thing that they need. And they have access to that program for up to 5 years as well.
So just piggybacking off a previous comment that was made about the impact of families coming in our current homelessness shelter system, can you just describe what the average family who's coming in to Wichita under this program, how many kids, what's the makeup of the family?
I think we have an arrival next week who that has 2 individuals, and then we also have a family coming that has 12 individuals. And the composition is usually mom, dad, and children. A lot of times those children can be adult children, but a lot of times they can also be minors as well. And with this specific circumstance, and with the kind of chaotic evacuations, that composition could look a little bit different with single head of household families as well.
So I'm just interested, Sally, maybe your expertise, if we don't get ahead of this and do this the right way, which is my intent here, what would happen with our current shelter systems if mom, dad with 10 children show up? How would that be handled?
In all honesty, we don't have a program that could at all that could handle a family of 12 through any of our shelters. So they would be looking at trying to put families in multiple hotel rooms, trying to work with faith-based organizations for families to sponsor or try and take in people. We just don't have the shelters space available for large families.
I got a few people on the list here. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, Sally. I'm going to ask you a few more questions, kind of logistical person, but so my first question is, you and I had a very brief conversation in the parking lot about this last week. Some of the families are coming have 12 family members, so we can't accommodate them either. Is that correct in saying that? Do we have accommodations for families that large?
There are some units in our community, particularly the rad houses we were talking about. We have 26 bedroom units in that
But are
portfolio.
there vacancies?
Unfortunately, HUD won't let us lease those currently, right? But there are larger homes in our community. It can be challenging to use the voucher because the voucher sets rents at 110% of the 40th percentile. Yeah, it's really complicated, but voucher rents tend to be a little bit less than market rents, and it can be challenging to find some units. We do have some out there. We have some families now. We have several refugee families in the voucher program now with very large families that have been able to lease up in single-family homes.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep asking a few more, if that's okay.
No problem.
So, and maybe this is a question for IRC friends, and then Sally, I'm not done with you, so don't go far away. But, and this may be a naive question, but I've never dealt with this scenario before, so I'm just trying to learn. But do they all need housing? I mean, are some of them able to get their own home? I mean, some of them might come with their own financial resources to be able to place themselves.
A little bit of both, actually, and not a naive question. So to speak to that, we are mandated by the federal government through our contracts to assist them in securing housing when they first initially get here. That's not to say that after a 12-month lease that they're not in a position to buy their own home, which some of our clients have done successfully over the years. So it does look a little bit different the longer that they stay and maintain their jobs and employment and connections to the city. But upon arrival, it is our obligation as the agency to secure housing for them.
So if we don't do this, then what is do you have other options or other plans? I mean, surely you must.
Yes, over the years, we've built relationships with landlords, property managers. So this is just kind of our icing on the cake, so to speak, that really the partnership that allows for the self-sufficiency program to strengthen ours and our case management. But definitely private owners, it's a lot of networking, a lot of conversations over the years that we've had with landlords.
Okay, thank you. Sally, can I keep hitting you with some more questions then? So out of the 400 that are coming, I'm just trying to think, they're not all coming at one time. They're not all maybe going to need housing. They might have housing needs that we can't accommodate. So I'm wondering if instead of a hard and fast 1.6% or so many units, is there more of a compromise or some sort of flexible approach? I mean, we want to be helpful, but then I'm sure, people understand too, our community members have been on a waiting list. And so I'm being torn a little bit here, right? Because we want to take care of our family that's here and welcome new family members as well. So Sally, the question is, is there a hybrid that might be more fair to the people who are on the waiting list? Maybe they're integrated into the waiting list instead of just given the priority. And then so you can answer that, but then my last question, I'd like to plant the seed of, we're receiving these refugees, but we're not the only city that's receiving these refugees. What are other cities doing? Thank you.
We could, obviously, we would have to devise, it makes it a little bit more challenging to try and do, for every 3 regular waiting list polls, we can pull someone with a preference. Kind of negates the way preferences work, because preferences work on a point system. So you either have a preference or you don't. We also have a preference for residents who live or work in our jurisdiction over people who apply from out. So it is a point system. So I don't know that we would be able to do or to structure it in a way to where we said we were pulling 3 from the waiting, regular list for every one. Instead, the idea was 50 unit cap. That's just as far as it's going to go. That's the depth of that investment. Just as an example, for the limited referral-based homeless preference, and I use that terminology very, very deliberate, because HUD says you cannot set aside vouchers. You cannot. It is against the regulations. However, you can have what they call local preferences, and residency is a local preference. We are choosing that we want to give people who live or work in our jurisdiction preference a point above people who don't. It was actually, 2013, I think, under HUD Secretary Sean Donovan, that they came out with this ability to do a limited referral-based preference, and it was in reference to homelessness at the time, that allows us to do a priority without violating program regulations. But the example on the limited referral-based homeless preference, we said at that point 10% of our allocation, which at that time was 303 vouchers. As of today, 82 are under contract. Only 82. It's kind of sad, in my opinion. Very sad. 21 months into it, and 82 are under contract. So even though we make these preferences available, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're scooped up immediately.
So just to follow up on something, sorry.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, sorry, you went back on the list, so I didn't know if you were done with.
She also,
with the time.
you
Sorry
had
for
asked
that.
about other communities.
And I can wait. I don't want to dominate. I'll relinquish the floor. Thank you, and then I'll come back.
Sure.
I just wanted to do a follow-up on something that was said, just for clarification, about folks in our community versus other folks in different communities. These folks will become a part of our community. But can you clarify that there are people on our waiting list right now who currently are not residents of Wichita?
Yes, absolutely.
So that waiting list
Hundreds
currently
of
has
them.
people on it who are not part of the community.
Yes, and that's a requirement from HUD. HUD says we can't limit people's ability to apply to our waiting list. However, we can provide a preference to those who live, work, or are hired to work in our jurisdiction. And because we have an online application, we received probably 400 or 500 out-of-state applications when we first opened up last year, simply because there are services out there that you can pay that will apply for you the minute any waiting list opens up. But with a preference system, and I tell people when they call, and I say, honestly, if you don't live or work in our jurisdiction, you're never going to come up on our waiting list, because as new applications come in with people who do live in our jurisdiction, those people get pushed down. And I mean, that happens daily, because we receive applications every day, because we've kept the waiting list open since we opened it back in July of 2020.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very sympathetic to our refugees and their plight, and want to be as welcoming as a community as possible. That said, a lot of this is brand new for me, learning about this for the first time today, and I know our staff is very well versed in it. Obviously, you're pulling out former housing directors that I've never heard of, so you know this very well. Again, a lot of issues have been brought up, a lot of different ideas. I think it bears that we maybe spend a little bit more time letting staff feedback some options for us. And again, I understand the sensitivity of time, but I think just even a 1 week or 2 week, if we only have 1 or 2 arrivals right now, it's not like we have all 400 coming in and we have to make this determination immediately. So there's just a lot of variables, and I'd like to get more comfortable with our options before deciding on this amendment today. So could we adopt the rest of the plan and address this amendment maybe 1 or 2 weeks later? I'm looking to staff and...
Part of the problem with that is the timeline with HUD, because if we open up a new amendment to the agency plan, then we have to hit those timelines again. The Resident Advisory Board, 45 days out for public comment, another public hearing, and another 75-day review period from HUD.
Yeah, just to speak to that, it's not my intention to spring an amendment on people. We started these conversations last week. I wasn't even sure if staff could prepare the proper language for amendment in time. Once we started dialoguing with the IRC and with other stakeholders, and I started talking with Sally, the opportunity was because this was coming up now, we could make that amendment from the bench. But it was from my understanding, our only opportunity on this. I would love to have had more time and to get more people comfortable with what's going on. I think that this is one of those where if we want to take this initiative, we really have to trust the expertise of our staff. But I do apologize for those who feel that this was, we haven't had enough time. Normally we do, but again, in this situation, and we're in an emergency situation, we could do this the right way. I can't imagine the people who had to flee their homes to board a plane for the first time ever, and the amount of time they had to prepare mentally for that, and now they're being dropped off in the middle of the country. So I think that we can also, though I wish we had more time to go over this amendment, I think that such a situation warrants an amendment.
If I could add too, another tact, and this was actually brought up yesterday, those coming in would meet the HUD's definition of homeless, right? And could be referred under the homeless preference system. However, that causes complete chaos within the shelter system, because in order to get on that by name list to be referred over for a homeless preference voucher, they actually have to be engaged in services with the homeless service providers. And so, it was another avenue that we kind of threw about in our minds. So this population could be served under that 10% allocation for HPP, but it would cause complete and utter havoc in the shelter systems and the homeless systems that we have in place, because they aren't going to be able to handle some of the large families that we're expecting to come through. And then it's also putting more demand on the caseworkers and those systems when there is already another agency that can provide the case management. So coming up with a separate preference and MOU actually assists the homeless service agencies in our community.
Councilmember Clayco.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I too am sympathetic to the issue. I just have some kind of technical questions. One you answered, Sally, but I just want to follow up, because I also thought about that. Couldn't they go into homeless voucher? Could IRC, even though they're not a homeless service provider, can they be a caseworker that puts them into the system of homeless service providers? You know what I'm asking?
Sure.
Can they fill that role?
Could IRC, I don't know if they are you existing COC members? As of right now, not existing COC members, could be.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we're doing this on the fly, right?
Yeah. However, in order to get into the coordinated entry system, it does require the completion of the VI SPDAT to be added to the by name list in order to even be then available for referral over. And the agency, because the coordinated entry list, the by name list has 171 names on it as of right now. Any of the COC member agencies can refer anybody on that list over for a homeless voucher, and a homeless preference voucher, so long as they're willing to provide the case management services. Hence why only 82 are leased up, because our agencies are stating they don't have the capacity to provide that case management service. So it would alleviate the one end, but to get there, you still have to engage with homeless services and complete the vulnerability index standardization, prioritization, and decision assistance tool assessment.
Couldn't just work with IRC case management, because it sounds like IRC has the case management capacity. It just doesn't fit the definition.
Right.
That's what you're telling me. Okay. All right. Darn. So talk a little bit about the people in our community that are on the waiting list. And I think what I just heard is that they aren't all in our community.
They're not. They're not. Yeah. Our waiting list has people from across the country. So, and like I said, those that live outside our jurisdiction, Sedgwick County, Butler County, Harvey County, outside of the city of Newton, are never going to come up on the waiting list. We have enough people applying at all times that pushes them down. So even though they're on our waiting list and represent numbers on our waiting list, I'm very honest with them when they call, and I'm like, I'm going to be real with you. You're never going to come up on our waiting list. You should look to apply in your own jurisdiction. So
Because they're outside of Sedgwick, Butler, and...
New York, Chicago, big hubs, we get a lot of applications. They all come in at once, too. I think there's some bot technology happening there because they all come in within seconds of each other on the waiting list.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and then my last question, and it's to the IRC folks. So if I understood, I think you said that you generally, when refugees come in, you have options for housing, and that this would help, right? But if you have options, could these folks the new refugees take advantage of your options and get on our waiting list?
Yes, that would be our plan. And to speak kind of to Sally's point too, I wanted to mention, we would not automatically throw all 400 into this situation and hope for a voucher and hope for the best. It would be a lot of that case management piece coming in to discern which clients would best suit a private option or what we call a U.S. tie option or the voucher situation. So it's definitely, the applications referrals would be made with thought and consideration for all of our clients. But yes, we do have a pool of landlords. It's not always a green light right when they get here. We do, as a national agency, have a great partnership with Airbnb to utilize properties such as that and hotels when they do arrive, in the instance that we're still establishing and identifying a new home. That was a lot of rambles. Did that answer your question? Thank you, Councilwoman.
And if I could add to that, our housing options are only really great options for those families that around 4 or 5 members. Once we get 5, 6, 12 members, the housing becomes unaffordable. And so even though the IRC may be able to assist with payment right at the beginning, the focus really is on long-term self-sufficiency. So we have great hesitation with putting clients in housing where the space fits, but the rent is so high that they would not be able to pay for it by themselves. And then a second point I would like to make is the members of the Afghan community that are coming in are going to be very vulnerable. We anticipate seeing a lot of single mothers just because of the situation of the evacuation. So there is an extra level of vulnerability with this population that having options for the vouchers would greatly assist.
Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm certainly sympathetic to the refugees' mission as well. I have a question for Sally. Thank you. Thank you for your quick work on all of this, by the way. I didn't know about this amendment coming up either this morning myself, so it was a little bit of a surprise, and I thank the council for the robust discussion that we've had today. Typically, we're provided with a recommendation on everything we vote on by staff. Are you recommending this amendment be approved today?
I would recommend that this amendment be approved. I think it takes the stress off the homeless systems. I think it's a very small dip into the pot at 1.6%, and that's only if we get all 50 referrals. And I think it just shows that we as a community are trying to be as helpful as we can in a tough situation. And even with the homeless preference in other circumstances, I've often said and had in presentations I've done nationally to say waiting lists don't necessarily have to be kept like a line at the amusement park that, you know, he who gets there first should be served first. Oftentimes, they should be like at the emergency room, and who's most critical to be able to assist. And that's part of the reason why we did the homeless preference, was because many of those folks were going to die on the street if we didn't do something about it, and how critical it is. And I think we're going to be in that same circumstance with some of these families. And like I say, some of these families. Yes.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. So I guess following up on Councilmember Claycomb's comments or questions, you all are just looking for an option. This is not option one to come to the vouchers. It's if the rest of the options that you have aren't working, and this seems to be one of those tools that can help you out. A option. Okay. So honestly, it's tough because the waiting list is something, I've even helped a few people get on that waiting list. So for me, adding another point of preference is tough, but I appreciate your comments, because the impact to the system, I think, would be pretty tremendous, and it would be terrible to have to come in and then go through all those services and then try to get some referral back. And it seems like an easier process and would be less impact on the system. I guess my struggle today is just there's a few folks that I helped get on the waiting list that I would love to see in other spaces too, but yeah.
Is there further discussion? Councilmember Claycomb.
Thank you. Sally, I just want to verify, because I think this is what I heard you said. If we would adopt this amendment, it will have about a 6-week impact on people that are on the waiting list. Did I hear that correctly?
If you use raw numbers, yeah, because our attrition is 30 to 40 vouchers a month.
Yeah.
That, it would take 6 weeks to lease up, up to about 50 people. I'm not thinking we're going to get those kind of referrals from the get-go, so, yeah.
Okay, so our current waiting list is 10 to 12 months, but by adopting this, we could have, give or take, a 6-week impact that people are on the waiting list, and those people are not homeless right now.
Correct.
Okay, they're just looking for a better situation for themselves.
They could be homeless. They really could be homeless. They could be couch hopping. They could, but most of those that are truly homeless come referred to us with the limited referral-based homeless preference, and then get served. You could have a group though that's like refusing, or people who are refusing services, who then do apply and are homeless. But it'd be few.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion. So again, I just want to apologize to the council with the timing of this, and to do this through amendment. I know it's something that we don't like to do. I will say this is an opportunity for us to give the IRC one additional tool in their toolbox to also get ahead of some unintended consequences that might happen to our shelters, as was articulated by Director Stang, and frankly, in my opinion, gives us an opportunity as Wichitans to lead the way and show the world that we're ready to do what's right. So with that, I close on my motion. Motion's already been made and seconded for the amendment, so I'll just close, and I would ask the clerk to open up the roll, and members can vote on the amendment.
We also have our resident.
And with the acknowledgement of our resident member as well. With our resident member, if you could voice either yay or nay.
Yay.
Let the record show that our resident member has voted yay, with a result of 8 yays to 0 nays. That motion does pass, and we're back in the original item as amended. Is there discussion on the original item? Legal, am I expected to read the entire motion? I will.
Mayor, you can make a motion to take staff's recommended action as written in the agenda report
As amended.
with the amendment that was just voted on, yes.
Thank you. So with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action as printed on page 4 of the agenda report with the amendment.
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast their vote.
I think it's page 3 of, just to be exact, it's page 3 of the report, correct?
Is page 3 in mine?
Is page 3 in your, is page 4? I will move to take staff's recommended action on non-consent housing agenda number 1, combined public hearing 2022 annual agency plan and 2022 capital fund grant estimate with the approved amendment.
Second.
There is a second. Clerk will open the roll. We'd ask that all members please cast a vote. I have 6 yeas. Is there a member who has yet to cast a?
Councilmember Claycomb, could you cast your vote? Thank you.
Thank you. And this is for final action on this item, so we would recognize our other 8th member as well.
Yay.
The record show the other member has said yay. Therefore, having received 8 yay votes, that motion does pass. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Approval of travel for Mayor Brandon Whipple and Councilmember Brian Fry to attend the League of Kansas Municipalities Conference, Topeka, Kansas, October 9th through 10th, 2021.
Well, this is going to be a fun trip, huh, Councilmember Fry? Yeah, maybe we can carpool up. So is there a discussion on the approval of travel for item 1? If not, I look forward to sitting next to Councilmember Fry and taking notes. And this is for Topeka for our League of Kansas Municipalities Conference. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I might add one way to this. If
There's no place like home.
I'll make the motion if there's no other questions. I'd move that the City Council approve the travel for Mayor Whipple and Councilmember Fry to attend the League of Kansas Municipalities Conference in Topeka, Kansas, October 9th through the 10th, 2021.
Second.
Been seconded by Councilmember Tuttle. So with that, clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. I've received 7 yea votes. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Approval of travel for Councilmember Brian Fry and Councilmember Becky Tuttle to attend the National Business Aviation Association Convention, Las Vegas, Nevada, October 12th through 14th.
Wait a minute. Can we all go in this one? Councilmember Bluebog.
Mayor. I'm glad to see my colleagues are going on this trip. I went for several years, both working for Textron and for the City Council, and it's very important to have a presence there. We have a lot of our business owners there, and it's, you know, they didn't have MBAA last year, so excited to see you guys go. Thanks for representing us.
I also concur with Councilmember Bluebog in thanking you for representing the city on this trip. With that, I will make the motion to take the recommended action to approve the travel of Councilmember Brian Fry and Councilmember Becky Tuttle to attend the National Business Aviation Association Convention in Las Vegas, Nevada from October 12th to the 14th. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Are there appointments by the council? Members would like to make at this time. If there are none, we can get into, wait. If there are none, then we can just get into announcements. Are there announcements for the good of the group? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to shout out Philip and Scott from MABCD. Last night we had a 4-hour DAB meeting, and they were there and did a great job and explained everything in very simple terms for our community. But it's nice 4 hours. Got done a little after 10 o'clock. So, again, just wanted to give them a shout out. And they were here bright and early and did not look tired. So even better. But again, just wanted to shout them out. We had more than 40 people and that was the biggest crowd we've had since the pandemic began. So it's good to have all those folks back over at Atwater. But again, thank you to Philip and Scott.
Further announcements, I guess it's an appropriate time to ask the manager if, I was hoping to get an update on the ethics board and the progression of the ethics board as far as where that stands, and if members have concerns about other members, just when they could file that with the ethics board instead of taking alternative routes.
Not sure I understood the last part of your question. I believe 2 people have been appointed by the council to the board, so we're still waiting for council appointments.
So is the council appointments pretty much all waiting for until the board can get up and running?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any further discussions? Seeing none, with that, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the vice mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Having received 7 yea votes, that motion does pass, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.